Welcome to Fantasy Audiobook, Pokemon. Born in a psychic family, I am invincible. Chapter 61. September 7th, Friday, the weather was fine. Varsity Battlefield, Lilu. On the battlefield, Kirlia stood calmly on the spot. It was pure white, and looked like a quiet girl, with long, slender blue legs. After evolving from Ralts to Kirlia, its hair does not completely cover the eyes, but has bangs that fall to the shoulders. At the same time, the two red tentacles on its head are located on the sides. Meadow. On the other side of the battlefield, Medic hovered steadily in midair, staring at Kirlia. Chen-Chi and Combusken were like two spectators, standing on the periphery of the field and watching the battle quietly. Lilu. Kirlia called out softly, her red eyes flickered, her hands folded in front of her chest, and super energy fluctuations gathered. In an instant, a magical Psybeam blasted out, quickly attacking Metang. Meadow. Medic faced the attacking Psybeam calmly, its eyes glowed with blue light, and a dazzling glass light screen suddenly rose in front of it. Psybeam hits light screen, the damage is weakened by half, and then hits Medic behind. With very little damage left, Medic was almost unscathed. Lilu. Kirlia was not discouraged, it danced lightly, and pieces of magical leaf condensed and danced, first surrounded by layers, setting off a breeze, and then burst out of the air at the same instant, attacking Medic. But the light screen was still standing in front of Medic, pieces of magical leaf hit the light screen and fell suddenly. The remaining magical leaf swooped towards Medic, it folded its arms to protect its chest. Bang, 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 the magical leaf quickly dissipated, leaving only shallow traces on Medic's silver arms. Lilu. Seeing that it has been too late to cause substantial damage to Medic, Kirlia is a little annoyed, its eyes glow with blue light, and its whole body is also covered by a faint blue light. In the next second, it disappeared out of thin air in front of Metang. Meadow. Medic's gaze was fixed, and he looked around, looking for Kirlia's trace. While her figure was flashing, Kirlia appeared out of thin air behind Medic, with her hands on her chest. A terrifying wave of super energy was released, and a substantive wave of magical thoughts burst out suddenly. But even if it was a sudden attack, Medic still reacted, and an emerald green barrier suddenly sounded all over its body. The thought wave hit the barrier, and the layers disintegrated in an instant, and the barrier also shattered. Lilu. Seeing that her attack was perfectly resolved by Metang again, Kirlia pouted her lips, feeling a little frustrated. Metang is as immovable as a mountain, like a copper wall iron defense, making it unable to cause effective damage to it all the time. Okay, let's go here. During this time, Chen-Chi clapped his hands and walked over quickly. First healed Medic with healing spray, then looked at the two Pokemon and praised, "You two are doing well. Metang's defense is very good." Meadow. Medic responded excitedly and waved his big paw. Kirlia is also performing very well, and the improvement is more obvious each time. Chen-Chi continued. Lilu. Kirlia bowed slightly, her mood gradually becoming cheerful. "Rest for a while," Chen-Chi said. Meadow. Lilu. Both Pokemon replied at the same time. Medic has high defense, Kirlia has high attack, and the two Pokemon complement each other perfectly, and both have senior level strengths, so they can conduct targeted training for each other. Yes, almost 2 weeks have passed since the start of school. During this time, Ralts managed to break through to the senior level, evolving into Kirlia. The level of Metang has steadily increased, and it is only one step away from the elite level. And Combusken also insisted on training every day, and from time to time he played against the Pokemon of the old members of the school team. After evolving into Kirlia, it can learn and master many more skills, and its combat power has been greatly improved, so Chen-Chi began to train Kirlia's actual combat ability. The information about Kirlia is actually a bit mysterious. According to the research of Pokemon scholars, Kirlia can keenly feel trainers' emotions, and trainers' cheerful emotions are the source of its spiritual power. In other words, the more positive and optimistic Chen-Chi is, the more cheerful and lively, the stronger Kirlia's spiritual power and the stronger the psychic. But for this point, Chen Ma mentioned it at the beginning, that is the relationship between spiritual power and Gardevoir. Perhaps this emotional power is closely related to spiritual power. And now Kirlia's data panel is as follows. Pokemon. Kirlia, Super, Fairy. Ability. Copy. Qualification. Champion. Abilities. Growl, Confusion, Destiny Bond, Protect, Light Screen, Taunt, Disable, Magical Leaf, Double Team, Future Sight, Mean Look, Disarming Voice, Psybeam, Psyshock, Heal Pulse, Teleport. Level: LV21 Senior. Today, Kirlia's skill pool is already very luxurious, and the skills she has mastered can fully meet the current needs. In its skill pool, there are many disgusting rival skills, which is the metamorphosis of the superpower Pokemon. The further back, the more unpredictable the methods of the superpower Pokemon, it is dreadful. What surprised Chen Qi the most was that, with his and Kirlia's unremitting efforts, both of them acquired the God-level skill, Teleport. The specific learning process is too cumbersome and complicated, requires a variety of steps, and requires a high level of psychic strength in the body, so I won't describe them one by one here. There is just one thing that makes Chen Qi sigh: Kirlia is worthy of a champion qualification. After learning Teleport, she can teleport a distance of tens of meters. And he practiced for several days, and now he can only span a distance of about 10 meters in an instant. And after using a shot, there is still a cooling time of up to 1 hour. Of course, Chen Qi is already very satisfied. With a distance of about 10 meters, he can already do a lot of things in an emergency. As the psychic in the body gradually grows, the distance covered will definitely increase, and it can even carry other people to carry out Teleport together. With the old man's psychic, this should be easy to do. After successfully mastering Teleport, Chen Qi has an extra hole card to save his life, which can definitely play an important role at critical moments. Not long after, the two Pokemon continued to train, while Combuskin honed his fighting skills on the sidelines. We still have to find a place to study systematically. Chen Qi looked at Combuskin and thought to himself. Combuskin has fighting type, fighting skill proficiency and fighting skills are crucial to it. For these two things, it is best to have a famous teacher for coaching, so that you can get twice the result with half the effort. Well, when Combuskin evolves into Blaziken, I'll ask if there is a place nearby that teaches fighting skills. Chen Qi thought. But the most important thing at the moment is to let Medic break through to the elite level, find a special magnetic field for it, and carry out the transformation before evolution. After a long time, the training of Metang and Combuskin ended. Chen Qi took them back into the Pokeball, and went to the school team room where Chu Zun talked with the members. Brother Chu Wai, do you know where there is a special magnetic field near the imperial capital? Chen Qi asked straight to the point. Chu Wai was taken aback for a moment, and then asked back, is Medic looking for a special magnetic field? Yes, Chen Qi nodded. Chu Wai nodded thoughtfully, then his eyes flickered, he thought for a while, and replied, I remember. He stared at Chen Qi, and smiled gently. In Hailong City, northeast of the imperial capital, there is a place called Electric Valley. Electrical Valley. Yes, it is Electric Valley. That area is affected by the secret realm, and there are regular thunderstorms every day. In addition, the hills there are filled with various special magnetic fields, and it is a paradise for electric Pokemon and steel Pokemon. Because of this special weather and environment, it is very suitable for cultivating electric and steel Pokemon, which is also the origin of its name. Chu Wai paused, and then said again, Hailong City is located on the border of our country, and Electric Valley is on the border of the border. If you want to go here, you must be an elite trainer at least. Elite trainer. Chen Qi nodded. He hasn't had time to certify as an elite trainer yet, but since that's the case, let's certify today. If you want to go there in the near future, I can introduce you to a senior who goes to Electric Valley breeders' own Pokemon every year. Chu Wai continued. Okay, thank you Brother Chu Huai. Chen Qi said. Small things, tell me when you are going. Chu Wai waved his hand and smiled. That afternoon, Chen Qi went to the Imperial Pokemon Association to apply for certification as an elite trainer. The elite trainer certification is the same as the senior trainer, you only need to defeat one elite Pokemon to pass. Chen Qi sent Combuskin for an easy win. Now, the information on his trainer certificate has changed to elite trainer. Well, it will be much more difficult to be certified as a professional trainer. Chen Qi thought to himself. To become a professional trainer, the prerequisite is 3 Pokemon with professional strength. Just as he walked out of the Pokemon Association building, the phone in his pocket vibrated. Chen Qi took it out and saw that it was Bai Yu's phone. Hello, sister. Brother, I heard from Chu Wai that you have gone to certify as an elite trainer. How is the situation? Just completed the certification. Chen Qi replied. Oh, that's it. Come to the school gate quickly, there is something important waiting for you. Doduo beep. After hanging up the phone, Chen Qi looked a little puzzled, and took a taxi to the school gate. Half an hour later, Chen Qi saw Riming, Huangquan and Tian Sao at the school gate. Bai Yu said directly, Brother, there is an urgent mission issued by the school, which can earn points. Do you want to go? What mission? Chen Qi asked. Bai Yu spoke very quickly, and said, an hour ago, according to the detection by the Pokemon Association of the Imperial Capital, a small secret realm appeared on the outskirts of the Imperial Capital. It is not yet known whether anyone has entered it by mistake. The multiple exits of this secret realm are some distance away from the nearest town, but it is still possible to affect the townspeople. Now the staff of the Pokemon Association has rushed to this secret realm, and at the same time, many colleges and universities in the Imperial Capital have issued tasks that require elite trainers to go to the secret realm protect entrance. Nowadays, there are already a lot of Pokemon coming out of the entrance and exit. The way to deal with this kind of small secret realm is very mature. The staff of the association are responsible for entering the secret realm to explore, and the rest of the trainers are responsible for protecting the entrance and exit, or repelling the Pokemon close to the town. This can be regarded as the training task left to us by the school. Just when I was looking for players, I heard someone said that you have gone to certify the elite trainer, so I will ask you by the way. How about it, are you going? Bai Yu looked at Chen Qi. Chen Qi no hesitation, just nodded and said, go. Not only can you get points, but you can also get experience points. This kind of thing that has the best of both worlds is not for nothing. Okay, take a taxi. Seeing Chen Qi nodding in agreement, Bai Ming said vigorously. 2 minutes later, the four sat on the express train heading to the suburbs. Send me your student number, and I'll pull you into the team. This task just needs 4 people. When the task is over, the points will appear in your information. Bai Ming said. This time the secret realm came, and a total of 4 entrances and exits were opened. Since the secret realm has been opened for a while, even if the protect entrance and exit, there are still some Pokemon wandering outside. Chen Qi's task is to solve this part of Pokemon. Remember, as long as there is a Pokemon with a strong sense of attack, don't hesitate to attack directly. Bai Yu said to Chen Qi with a solemn face. Of course, this part of Pokemon normal is low in strength and will not exceed the elite level. Compared to the trainer who enters the secret realm and guards the entrance and exit, our task is still very easy. Wang Zhou added. Soon, the 4 of Chen Qi arrived at the town closest to the secret place by car. After completing the handover work with the staff here, they headed to the edge of the town under the guidance of the staff. Their task is to protect this area and search for Pokemon that came out of the secret realm. Well, calm as always. Wang Zhou sat on a big rock and stretched his waist. It's the same as the last time I performed this kind of mission. I stayed outside for a long time and didn't encounter a single Pokemon. The points are like free prostitution. It's easy to get. However, after hearing this, Huangquan's face changed suddenly, and he sternly shouted, quickly shut your crow's mouth. Bai Yu also gave Wang Zhou a hard look. At this time, Wang Zhou realized that he had said the wrong thing, smiled embarrassingly, and made a gesture of sealing his mouth with a sticker. Meeting Chen Qi's suspicious gaze, Bai Yu sighed and explained, Brother, don't be like this Wang Zhou and say unlucky words. According to the law of the unknown, when you lament that there is nothing to do, many troubles will follow. Especially in hospitals, police superintendents and other places, it is most taboo to say such things. Chen Qi smiled and was about to speak when all 4 of them looked up at the same time, and saw a group of pink and overweight Pokemon at the end of the road. Its ears are rolled up, and there are only small pupils in the big and round eye sockets, making it look particularly dull. With creamy mouths, short limbs, and a long pink tail, these Pokemon waddled toward them. Slowpoke. Seeing this group of Slowpokes, Huangquan and Bai Yu glared at Wang Zhou at the same time. Chen Qi suddenly understood why he must not say such things. Come on, get ready to fight. Bai Yu sighed, then stood up and sent out her own Pokemon. At the same time, Wang Zhou and Huang Quan also stood up and raised their hands to throw the Pokeball. White light bloomed, and 3 elite Pokemon appeared in front of everyone. Bai Yu's Pokemon is Braixen, which is about to evolve, and Wang Zhou's is Pangoro. As for Huang Quan, he naturally sent Monferno, who was beaten up by Combusken some time ago. Chen Qi also sent Combusken. Looking at the slowpokes who were staggering towards him and the others, Bai Yu said in a concentrated voice, "Don't look at them stupidly and attack mercilessly later. Probably because when the secret realm comes, this space is more chaotic, which affects the Pokemon in these secret realms, making them more irritable and more likely to attack humans. Must be careful." Chen Qi nodded, then looked intently. There are a total of 11 slowpokes in this group, 4 of which are at the elite level, and the rest are at the senior level. The distance between the two sides shortened rapidly, and when the distance was less than 10 meters, the slowpoke stopped in place. Immediately afterwards, he looked at them with dull eyes, his eyes suddenly lit up with blue light, and confusion surged. Small stones on the ground floated out of thin air and smashed towards them. Sure enough, an attack was launched after a disagreement. While Rock Throw was attacking, the Pokemon on Chen Qi's side also moved. Monferno and Combusken spit out Flamethrower, and Braixen waved his stick, also gathering hot flames. Flame. Only Pangoro stood there blankly looking at the 3 flames surging out. It looked around and found that only he could spit up the flames. 3 flames surged out, while Pangoro leered. Puff. The fire was soaring into the sky, and the heat wave was rolling, like a fire dragon roaring, swallowing countless stones completely, and the high temperature almost instantly wiped them out, dissipating into the world. But this group of slowpokes seemed to have the command of normal. They reacted quickly, opened their mouths together, spit out a stream of swift water, and hit the flames directly. Bang, bang, bang. The flame and the water collided violently in midair, and the water vapor rose, as if expanding and expanding normal, covering the line of sight. Seeing this, Wang Zhou seized the opportunity and shouted, "Pangoro rushes over to carry out the decapitation operation." Roar. Seeing that he was finally useful, Pangoro beat his chest and roared angrily. With heavy steps, he rushed into the water vapor. Monferno, get on. Combusken, we're going too. Huang Quan and Chen Qi gave orders at the same time. Bai Yu's eyes were calm, and he directed Braixen to stand still and escort the 3 Pokemon who rushed into the slowpoke. The water vapor gradually dissipated, and the scene in front of me came into view. Combusken showed its sharp claws and glowed with white light, darting around among the lumbering sluggish crowd, as if dancing a waltz. While the figure flickered, a slowpoke suffered abdominal pain and fell to the ground. Monferno's fists were entangled in the flames, and the flames on the tip of his tail were burning fiercely. With a glint in his eyes, he swung several punches in succession, impenetrable, and knocked the slowpoke in front of him to the ground. The rogue was ferocious with a bamboo leaf in his mouth, his eyes were stern, he swung his heavy and powerful fist, he hammered down with one arm, and a slowpoke fell to the ground. In a short period of time, all senior slowpokes have been ended by 3 Pokemon. On the field, only the last 4 elite slowpokes remained. Although Slowpoke has water type and can better restrain their 3 fire type Pokemon, there is a big gap between trainer-breeder Pokemon and wild Pokemon in terms of combat power. A few minutes later, after some fighting, the last 4 Slowpokes also fell to the ground. I'll contact the staff and ask them to take these Slowpokes away. Bai Ming took out his mobile phone and was about to make a call. Charlo. Suddenly, Combusken screamed in a low voice, his orange eyes turned alert, and he turned his head to look forward. Ah-cha! Roar! At the same time, the other 3 Pokemon also turned their heads to look, showing vigilance. Seeing this, the 4 of them immediately adjusted the contest condition, fixed their gazes, and looked around. At the end of the road, 2 bronze-colored bells floated slowly. The mouths of the bells were facing down. There were patterns carved all over the body, and there were strange bronze-shaped eyes. Pokemon. Bronzong, Steel, Super Power. Ability. Floating. Qualification. Gym. Level. LV39 Elite. And the other Bronzong, same as ability, level is 38. 2 very close to pro-grade Bronzongs. For the 4 Pokemon that have just entered the elite level, we need to be cautious. According to the records, Bronzong can summon rain clouds and bring down heavy rain, so he is called the god who can summon rain clouds. Why? It's strange, there was Slowpoke before, and Bronzong after, both of them are psychic Pokemon. Could it be that this is a secret place of psychic system? Chen Qi thought to himself. There are many types of secret realms. There are many types of Pokemon, such as Pingxi's secret realm, and there are only one attribute Pokemon in it. If this is a superpower system secret realm, then its value is unimaginable. The value of super Pokemon is at the forefront of all attributes. Baiyu obviously realized that something was wrong. She raised her eyebrows. With short hair and a heroic figure, she said sharply, "Brother, the two of us will deal with the one on the left. Wang Zhou, Huang Quan, you deal with the one on the right." Clear. Receive. The four immediately commanded their respective Pokemon to adjust their positions to deal with the slowly floating Bronzong. "Brother." Bronzong moves clumsily, Braixen attacks from a distance, and Combusken closes in to restrain him. Baiyu thought for a second before speaking. "Okay." Chen Qi nodded. "Braixen, flamethrower." After a while, Baiyu gave the order directly. "Flame charge," Chen Qi said lightly. As soon as the words fell, Braixen stared blankly. He waved the wooden stick in his hand, and the flames danced like Pokemon one by one. Call. All of a sudden, the flames burst into flames, and hot flames gathered together. Braixen strikes the stick, and the flamethrower surges out. Charlo. Combusken's eyes were sharp, his body was covered in flames. He stepped forward, left and right with flamethrower, and rushed towards Bronzong at a high speed. Boom. Bronzong's ring-shaped red eyes quietly watched the incoming attack without making waves. Immediately, its body shook slightly, making a dull bell. It is said that when it sounds like a bell, the cave leading to the other world will be opened. Chen Qi didn't see the cave leading to another world, but an emerald green barrier suddenly formed in front of Bronzong. Boom. The flamethrower crashed into the barrier. The barrier was emerald green and motionless as a mountain, and the flames were completely blocked. Combusken followed closely behind, its eyes fixed, and it rushed towards barrier with an astonishing momentum. Boom. The violent collision sound was deafening, and the overwhelming force made the barrier collapse instantly. With the cracking sound of click, the barrier broke through. Combusken's offensive continued, it lit up its sharp claws, and a white light shone in front of Bronzong's eyes. Immediately afterwards, both palms turned into hand knives and slashed down violently. Boom. The sharp claws directly hit Bronzong's body, tearing open a shallow scar in an instant, and the tyrannical force directly forced Bronzong to retreat again and again. Boom, boom, boom. Bronzong's body shook violently, and the bell rang loudly and continuously. Looking at the scene just now, a strange color flashed in Baiyu's eyes. Even in the face of Bronzong, who is very close to the professional level, Combusken still showed his tyrannical combat power. Its true combat power is still open to debate. Boom boom boom. When the bell rang, Bronzong shook his body, setting off waves of magical thoughts, which spread towards Combusken and Braixen layer by layer. Light screen. Baiyu responded quickly and ordered directly. Braixen swung the wooden stick again, and a dazzling glass light screen lit up in front of him. Who isn't a psychic Pokemon? The blue thought wave came through the air, and when it broke through the light screen, the damage was weakened by half, and finally the damage to the two Pokemon was minimal. Flamethrower. Then, Baiyu and Chen Qi spoke at the same time. Boom. Two raging flamethrowers pierced through the air at the same time, and exploded on Bronzong's body, making a huge roar. Although Bronzong's dual defense is quite high, it is twice as restrained by fire-type skills, not to mention two fire-type Pokemon attacking at the same time. Boom. Bronzong staggered, his body was scorched black, and finally fell to the ground. On the other side, after some dust fighting, another Bronzong also fell to the ground. Wang Zhou looked at Bronzong on the ground and said, "What the hell?" Huang Quan glanced at him sideways, and said quietly, "If it weren't for someone's crow's mouth, we are very comfortable now." Wang Zhou closed his mouth. Baiyu squinted her eyes, and said slowly, "Slowpoke and Bronzong, is this a secret place of the superpower system?" "Very likely." Huang Quan nodded in agreement. "Superpower system secret realm, make a fortune." Wang Zhou murmured. "Not necessarily." Baiyu shook his head, and said to Chen Qi, "If the superpower Pokemon in this secret realm are not rare, or the strength is not high, the value will not be so high. The superpower Pokemon also has high and low value. Okay, let's contact the staff here. Bai Ming clapped his hands, took out his mobile phone, and informed the staff of the situation here. Not long after, 2 staff members arrived and collected all the Pokemon that fell on the ground into the Pokeball. The trainer who first entered the secret realm has come out. This is indeed a secret realm of the superpower system, and there are a large number of superpower Pokemon inhabiting it. Because the superpower Pokemon is unpredictable, Xuanxin Dojo has been notified now, and they will come soon. After one of the staff members finished speaking, they turned and left with their companions. Sister, is the Xuanxin Dojo the psychic dojo in the north? Chen Qi asked proactively. That's right, Bai Yu nodded. Then, she said slowly, the northern psychic dojo is called Xuanxin Dojo, and the southern psychic dojo is called Tianxin Dojo. Even outsiders like us are clear about the grievances and hatreds between these 2 ashrams. Wang Zhou laughed. Bai Yu didn't comment. She continued, brother, in the face of a large number of superpower Pokemon, it is the safest way to let the Xuanxin Dojo take care of it. There are many psychic people and super energy trainers in the Xuanxin Dojo, which happen to be professional counterparts. This is also magic defeating magic. When I was a freshman, I visited the Xuanxin Dojo, and it wasn't very interesting. Bai Ming continued, the calm mind method is not bad. Calm mind method. Yes, that is the unique calm mind method of Xuanxin Dojo. It can exercise psychic more efficiently, and can enter deep sleep contest condition. The effect of sleeping for 2 hours is similar to sleeping for 8 hours. Chen Qi's eyes lit up when he heard this. According to Bai Yu's description, this calm mind method is a good thing. Of course, this calm mind method is unique to the Xuanxin Dojo, so it is naturally impossible to pass it on to outsiders. Speaking of this, Bai Ming's eyes flashed, and he continued, well, if it is the 2 of us, it may not be. Chen Qi was taken aback for a moment, and then had a guess in his mind. The 4 continued to stay here, but they never encountered other wild Pokemon. An hour later, the staff task has been completed. Let's go. Wang Zhou stood up and stretched a lot. After that, it's none of their business. The 4 returned to the town and were about to take a taxi back, but they saw more than a dozen men and women in white robes getting off a bus. They looked indifferent, and walked towards the secret realm under the guidance of the staff. Here, this is the person in the Xuanxin Taoist temple. Bai Ming raised his head and introduced. Wang Zhou rubbed his chin, and asked softly, Sister Yu, are you psychic people all strange in character, either as cold as ice, or as indifferent as a saint? Bai Yu glanced at him lightly, and said, I'm not a psychic, I just know a little bit of psychic. Is there any difference? Wang Zhou asked quietly. Bai Yu gave him a hard look, and replied, the difference is huge. Afterwards, she explained carefully, a real psychic will use confusion objects, strengthen Pokemon, and Psyshock. My psychic can only move a blank sheet of paper. Chen Qi heard from Dad Chen that the psychic blood in my cousin's body is relatively weak, so I only awakened a little psychic. As she said, this psychic is worse than nothing, and it doesn't play any important role. And she thinks very clearly that her psychic talent is low, and she won't achieve much if she works hard, so it's better not to practice. 8. Yu went on to say, as for why the psychic character is so strange, it is because the psychic in the body affects the brain. The psychic in the body will give many psychic people an illusion that their life level is already higher than ordinary people. While mastering powerful power, you also need to have the disposition to restrain it, otherwise you will become irritable, and have a weird temperament. Chen Qi nodded thoughtfully. Sabrina and Catalia are living examples. Psychic people seem cold and indifferent, but they are actually restraining the powerful psychic in their bodies. Of course, there are also some psychics who are not affected by psychics at all. After saying these words, Bai Yu turned to look at Chen Qi. Chen Qi instantly understood what his cousin meant, and nodded slightly. Okay, let's go back. Seeing Chen Qi nodding, Bai Yu said. Not long after, the 4 got on the express train back to school. After Chen Qi returned to the dormitory, he searched for information about Xuanxin Dojo. Mysterious heart refers to the heart that comprehends the mysteries of things. Looking at Zan Xin's explanation, Chen Qi nodded thoughtfully. Xuanxin Dojo is located in the imperial capital, with more than 1,000 disciples, most of them are psychic. Of course, there are high and low psychic people, and the strong psychic people are always very few. Perhaps, we can find a chance to go to the Xuanxin dojo after the matter of Metang is over. Chen Qi thought to himself. Father Chen once said that they are not hostile to the two ashrams. Even, the two ashrams wanted to win them over. The reason is very simple. Chen Wei is the only superpower elite in Dongwang. The sudden arrival of the secret realm of the superpower department was just a small episode in college life. After Chen Qi returned to school, he once again lived a very fulfilling life. Classes, training, and the library take up most of his time at 3 o'clock in one line every day. The courses of the research department are much more profound and more difficult than those of the combat department, involving various aspects of knowledge, and many knowledge needs to be learned in the library. At the same time, Chen Qi also understands the difficulty of writing an excellent paper, which is not as simple as some time travelers' lip service. If you want to write a good paper that is recognized by professionals and the public, careful logic, rigorous format, and a large amount of valid data are indispensable. So even if the rest of Eevee's evolution hadn't been discovered, it would still be very difficult for him to write a paper on it. But it is always a good thing to have a direction, and there is always a time to solve the following format and data. In addition, many other organizational departments offered him an olive branch during this period. Chen Qi refused. He has so many things to do now that he has no spare time. September 15th, Friday, the weather was fine. Varsity battlefield. Chen Qi and Chu Wai stood on both sides of the battlefield, facing each other from a distance, and Bai Yu acted as a temporary referee. On the field, Combuskin battles a small Pokemon. Its skin is pewter-colored, its back is covered with plate armor, its mouth has two sharp fangs, and its sky-blue eyes are very eye-catching. Pokemon. Lyron, Steel, Rock. Ability. Heavy Metal. Qualification. Elite. Level. LV39 Elite. Lyron, which feeds on iron ore, and its final evolution form, Aggron, looks domineering and powerful, and is often mistaken for a quasi-god Pokemon. This Lyron, which is infinitely close to the professional level, is Chu Wai's fourth Pokemon, and it is also the Pokemon that he is focusing on cultivating now. And his other three Pokemon have all broken through to the professional level. Thinking about it, if it wasn't for his own strength, how could Chu Wai become the captain of the school team? If you want to gain a foothold in the school team, strength is the first element. Rock Tomb, Chu Wai said calmly. Kata. Lyron let out a low growl, and immediately stomped on the ground. The mysterious earth power surged, and one after another rock emerged from the ground, occupying half of the sky. Kata. After a while, as Lyron roared again, countless rocks smashed towards Combuskin at the same time. Rock Tomb Blockade. Facing the rock that came all over the sky, Chen Qi looked calm and ordered. Charlo. Combuskin called softly, its eyes were sharp, and it took a step forward, turning into an afterimage. The extremely developed leg muscles dragged it to jump into Splash, and the next second it landed lightly on the rock that was about to fall to the ground. Immediately afterwards, Combuskin took this rock as a springboard, jumped lightly again, and jumped onto the second rock. Going back and forth like this, Combuskin used each rock as a springboard for jumping, and rushed to Lyron in a short time. Quote. Looking at the scene in front of him, Chu Wai couldn't help admiring, what a subtle way to avoid it. Using rock as a springboard, not only avoiding Rock Tomb, but also successfully coming to Lyron. It's incredible. Chen Qi smiled slightly, and gave another command, Brick Break. Lyron was restrained 4 times by fighting skills, so Chu Wai naturally couldn't just watch Lyron suffer this attack. Iron Head, he said sharply with calm eyes. Charlo. Combuskin lights up its sharp claws, flashes white light, and slashes violently. Ka Duo. Lyron's hard head was as lustrous as Orberg. Facing Combuskin's fierce attack, Lyron would not evade, but instead stretched out his head actively to attack with his hard head. Boom. The sharp claws collided with the head in an instant, and the orange-yellow eyes met the sky-blue eyes. Suddenly, Combuskin took half a step back, and Lyron backed up again and again. Shallow ravines were plowed out of his limbs, and scars remained on his head. In this head-to-head match, Combuskin was the better player. Go on, double kick. Chen Qi shouted. Combuskin panted slightly, and looked up at Lyron again, his body suddenly sprang out, and it kicked out its strong legs. The terrifying speed of the unexploded explosion made Lyron have no chance to react at all. Bang! Bang! Both legs came out together, and the sharp white light shone, directly kicking Lyron, which weighed more than 200 kilograms, into the air. Boom! With the sound of a heavy fall, Lyron hit the ground heavily, eyes circled. Baiyu glanced down, and immediately said loudly, Lyron has lost the ability to fight, so the winner is Chen Qi. Even if there are no other spectators on the battlefield at this time, there should still be a sense of meaning, and the referee must be indispensable. Chu Wai quickly walked up to Lyron, used healing spray to heal his wounds, and said with a gentle smile, "You are already great." Ka duo. Lyron opened his sky-blue eyes and responded weakly. Afterwards, Chu Wai put Lyron into the Pokeball, walked up to Chen Qi, and said with a smile, "It's over, brother, I can't beat you anymore." Combusken's progress rate is really scary. Some time ago, Lyron and Combusken began to learn from each other. At the very beginning, Lyron won more and lost less. After a while, the two won and lost each other, with little difference. In the past 3 days, Lyron has not won a game. Lyron has become somewhat autistic. Combusken's strength is still continuing and improving steadily. According to Chu Wai's estimation, it is estimated that it will be close to the professional barrier in a short time. If all goes well, Combusken may be able to successfully break through the barriers and break through to the professional level next year. At that time, Chen Qi was either in the first semester of his freshman year or the first semester of his sophomore year. Being able to have a professional level Pokemon in these 2 periods can only be said to be invincible. All other descriptions are too weak. Hearing this, Chen Qi replied with a smile, Combusken has indeed improved significantly during this period. Today, Combusken's level has been raised to level 36. Yes, exactly the level that should have evolved into Blaziken. But Combusken didn't evolve. When Chen Qi was puzzled, he directly asked Chen Ma, who is the breeder master. This situation is very normal, which means that you will make the Combusken breeder very good. Its upper limit has been raised, and evolution requires more energy. You know, quasi-god Pokemon are all late bloomers, and their evolutionary level is very high. That's precisely because they require a lot of energy to evolve. Chen Qi understood what Chen Ma meant, that is, if Combusken wanted to evolve into Blaziken, it might take some time to accumulate energy. Fill up the required energy in the body, and then it can evolve. Then Chen Ma gave a specific time. According to Combusken's qualifications and breeder's situation, it can evolve smoothly in at most half a month, or even faster. In this way, Chen Qi felt relieved. Doduo beep. Suddenly, the phone rang in Chu Wai's pocket, interrupting Chen Qi's thoughts. He took out his cell phone and connected. After a while, Chu Wai hung up the phone and said to Chen Qi, "Brother, your matter is settled." When Chen Qi heard this, he thought about it carefully, and then asked, "Electrical Valley?" After thinking about it, it seems that this is the only thing that Chu Wai asked for help. Chu Wai smiled slightly, nodded and said, "Yes, the Lei Jin player I told you at the beginning has passed the test and can go to Electric Valley at any time. After Medic breaks through to the elite level, I will tell him." Chen Qi nodded slightly, and said, "Then you can go now, Medic has already broken through to the elite level." Really? He suppressed the surge of thoughts in his heart and confirmed it seriously. With a serious expression, Chen Qi nodded and said, "It's absolutely true." Metang had broken through to the elite level 5 days ago, and then Chen Qi spent 5 days consolidating his strength. The current Metang can go to Electric Valley. Seeing Chen Qi's reaction, Chu Wai nodded in a daze. Baiyu grinned. Normally, Combusken is progressing so fast, Metang should be progressing even faster. They are a family of superpowers. With the astonishing progress of Combusken as a foreshadowing, Chu Wai quickly accepted the progress of Metang. Even so, he still sighed aloud. "Brother, you really don't leave any room for your peers." Fortunately, he didn't compete with Chen Qi, otherwise he would be overwhelmed. After sighing for a while, Chu Wai continued, "Then let's go to Lei Jin now. He's playing against the stadium." The 3 left the battlefield and went to the battle stadium. Baiyu walked beside Chen Qi and reminded, "Brother, let me introduce Lei Jin to you first. He is the son of the master of the electricity department in Fushi City." He is a trainer who specializes in electricity. He has a more upright personality, so sometimes he is not too pleasing to the county. Chu Wai smiled, turned his head and said, what Lei Jin likes to do the most is to show off his strength in the battle stadium every time the school starts, and enjoy the cheers from his juniors. Hearing this, the corners of Chen Qi's mouth twitched. He is like me. Now in his junior year, Trump Card Pokemon has broken through to the professional level and is the main force in the school team. Chu added. He went to Electric Valley with his father in his freshman year, and went alone in his sophomore year. He is familiar with it, and it is very safe for you to go with him. Well, for the rest, you'll understand after spending time with him. During the conversation, the three had already arrived at the battle stadium. Chu Wai and Bai Yu are well known in the school, and Chen Qi is also well known. Once the three of them came to the battle stadium, they attracted the attention of many students. Facing everyone's eyes, the three of them walked into the battle stadium. After passing through the long corridor, a battlefield crowded with crowds came into view. The atmosphere is hot and noisy. The three of them found a place to sit down in the stands on both sides, and then looked down at the battlefield. On the left side, a brawny man with yellow hair is wearing a camouflage vest. His muscular figure is undoubtedly revealed. He folded his arms, with a playful smile on his face. What will you do next? Opposite was a fat man with a slightly bloated body. After hearing Lei Jin's words, he was sweating profusely and looked anxious. On the battlefield, a large electric mouse was showing a fierce smile, staring at Heracross, who was panting heavily and covered in scars. Seeing the fat man's reaction, Lei Jin smiled fiercely, and said in a serious voice, Raichu, Thunderbolt will solve it. 556. Raichu's gaze was fixed, and electric currents flickered on his cheeks. In an instant, spark exploded, turning into a thick electric current, hitting Heracross. Heracross! The fat man yelled, crying. Heracross was hit head-on by Thunderbolt, and his body, which was already like a candle in the wind, could no longer hold on, and fell straight down. Chen Qi squinted his eyes, feeling that this Lei Jin is not quite right. Chu Wai seemed to have detected the doubt in Chen Qi's eyes, and took the initiative to explain. Because of family reasons, Lei Jin's actions are more ruthless, and he will never show mercy to rival, and at the same time, he will use his best to treat all trainers. He said it was his attitude towards the fight. Only the failure of the cruelest can promote the growth of trainer. Bai Yu added in a low voice. His father is also the same, so the pass rate of Fuxi Electric Gymnasium is extremely low. Well, Lei Jin seems to be unkind and has a violent temper, but he is actually a good teammate. He has a clear distinction between likes and hates, and he has abiding principles and bottom lines. Chu Wai stood up and continued. At the same time, the fat man retracted the Heracross, ready to turn and leave. Lei Jin coughed, and then said expressionlessly, your Heracross is almost ready, go back and focus on training your strength. Afterwards, he grinned again, because he said, I will bully you next time. Hearing this, the fat man rushed out of the crowd. While enjoying the applause and cheers from all directions, Lei Jin said loudly, who else? Lei. Raichu stood beside Lei Jin, with a stern smile on his face, and electric current flashed on his cheeks. The three of Chu Wai walked through the crowd and came directly in front of Lei Jin, and the noise around the venue gradually calmed down. Lei Jin, do you still remember what I told you last time? Chu Wai said straight to the point. Lei Jin grinned and said, of course I remember. Afterwards, his eyes rested on Chen Qi, and he said, you are the famous Chen Qi these days, right? I have long admired your name. Chen Qi shook hands with Lei Pu, feeling his strength. Afterwards, Lei Jin stared at Chen Qi and said with a smile, I am very familiar with Electric Valley, I can take you there. But there is one thing. Chen Qi's eyes flickered, and then he said calmly, I accept all challenges. Readily. Hearing this, Fu Jin laughed out loud. BCAI, the moment Chen Qi met Lei Jin's eyes just now, Chen Qi knew that a battle was inevitable. In this world, Pokemon battles are a way of greeting and the most direct and effective way of communication. Before dinner, join in the fun with a Pokemon battle. After eating, have a Pokemon battle to digest and digest. Chu Wai seemed to have anticipated this scene a long time ago, and said directly, I will be the temporary referee. Lei Jin nodded, then looked at Chen Qi, pointed to Raichu beside him, and said loudly, "I'll use it." Chen-Chi lowered his head and looked at Raichu carefully. Raichu is the evolved form of Pikachu, with dark orange fur all over, white belly, 2 brown stripes on the back, and spark type at the end of the long and thin black tail. Pokemon. Raichu, Electricity. Ability, Lightning Rod. Qualification, Master. Level, LV38 Elite. Obviously, this Raichu is not Lei Jin's trump card Pokemon. The two stood on both sides of the battlefield, looking at each other from a distance. At the same time, the battle here has attracted the attention of countless students. On one side is Lei Jin, a well-known member of the school team, and on the other side is Chen-Chi, the first place in the field military training this year. Many students have already started to turn on their mobile phones, calling their friends to witness this battle together. I don't know how long Chen-Chi can last in Lei Jin's hands. At least 2 minutes. Don't underestimate Chen-Chi, his Combusken is very strong. No matter how strong he is still among his peers. Lei Jin is 2 years older than him, so he is not at the same level at all. Yes, Chen-Chi is the strongest freshman this year, but after all, he is facing the main members of the school team who are 2 years older than himself, and some people think that he has no wins. Soon, under the attention of everyone, the temporary referee Chu Wiping raised the flag and said loudly, "Please send out your own Pokemon." "Go," Lei Jin said to Raichu, and then raised his eyes to look at Chen-Chi, casting his eyes like a lone wolf. Raichu geared up and stepped onto the battlefield. Meeting the gaze from Lei Jin, Chen-Chi looked calm, raised his hand and threw a Pokeball, and said, "It's up to you, Combusken." Chen-Chi originally wanted to send out Medig, but Medig, who has just broken through to the elite level, is not Raichu's rival at all, not to mention that Medig is very bulky, and it is estimated that Raichu will play with it in the palm of his hand. White light bloomed, and Combusken stood firm on the field, with orange-yellow coxcombs erected high, with awe-inspiring fighting spirit. Around the arena and stands on both sides, all the students quieted down, quietly watching the two song Pokemon on the arena. The battle begins. Suddenly, Chu Wai waved down the flag and shouted loudly. The two looked at each other, and the voice sounded at the same time. "Raichu, fake out. Combusken, protect." The voice fell on Lei Jin with a surprised expression. "Protect. Start the game with protect." On the field, Raichu strode forward and charged towards Combusken at high speed, his palms glowing with white light. But an emerald green barrier suddenly lit up in front of Combusken, blocking Raichu out. There was an uproar around the battlefield. "I see through, read first. Lei Jin's underpants have been detected. Is this the legendary villain Lei Da?" Chen-Chi raised his eyes and looked forward with a calm expression. Raichu used fake out in the first round, the old classic tactics, who doesn't know? Interesting. Seeing this, Lei Jin regained his composure, then raised the corner of his mouth slightly, and said loudly, "In that case, let's use thunder." "Ray Ray," Raichu responded, and immediately the electric pouches on both cheeks flickered violently, and the long tail was close to the ground. With a crackling sound, there was a dull thunder in the air. Immediately afterwards, the thick electric column fell suddenly, Combusken jumped lightly, and the electric column, Kara, smashed the ground, but thunder still did not end. Chen-Chi raised his head, looking up at the berserk thunder above the field. Fortunately, he is the son of the master of the electrical system gymnasium, and there are indeed some things. He secretly sighed. In the next second, Chen-Chi's eyes were calm, and he ordered, "Dig." A series of thunderbolts came crashing down one after another. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Combusken quickly dug out a hole and rushed in. The thunder roared violently, and bolt strike shattered the ground, the floor cracked, and Combusken hid underground, unscathed. Finally, the thunder gradually dissipated, only the ground where the cracks were broken told the tragic situation just now. "Pay attention to your feet," Lei Jin said coldly. Raichu stood on the field, looking around vigilantly, paying attention to the Combusken that may appear at any time. The surrounding area also gradually quieted down, and all the audience involuntarily leaned forward and widened their eyes. Boom! Suddenly, the ground under Raichu's feet collapsed, and it reacted very quickly, jumping directly into Splash. But a figure covered in flames rushed out, like red lightning, so fast that it was difficult to catch with the naked eye. Boom! The flames burst into flames, and Combusken, who was covered in flames, successfully slammed into Raichu, sending Raichu flying a few meters away with a powerful force. There was a dead silence around the place. I used flame charge underground. Chu Wai looked at this scene and nodded thoughtfully. Immediately afterwards, Chen Qixin said, "Flamethrower." Lei Jin's eyes flickered, and he said in a serious voice, "Thunderbolt." Raichu, who was knocked out, performed a backflip in midair before landing firmly on the ground. Without any hesitation, it stared disdainfully, and the thick thunderbolt shot violently. Boom! Flamethrower and thunderbolt met and collided in midair, and instantly produced a deafening explosion and a puff of black smoke. There's no distinction between top and bottom. Is this really a freshman Pokemon? Seriously, this Chen Qi is really outrageous. The surrounding students talked about it. On the field, the black smoke hadn't dissipated yet. A figure broke through the blockage of the black smoke in an instant, its claws burst into sharp light, and hit Raichu's face. "It's Combusken," someone shouted, jaw-dropping. Boom! This time, Raichu didn't have time to dodge in the future, was attacked by Combusken, and directly fell heavily to the ground. Chu Wai looked down and saw that Raichu had closed his eyes, and he said loudly, "Raichu has lost the ability to fight. Therefore, the winner is Chen Qi." All of a sudden, there was thunderous applause and cheers. Not bad. Seeing Raichu fell to the ground, Lei Jin clapped his hands and smiled on his fierce face. Afterwards, he took Raichu back, walked quickly to Chen Qi, grinned and said, as expected of the strongest freshman in this class. It was stronger than the captain at the time. Chu Wai walked over, coughed dryly when he heard this, and interrupted, "Go back first." Surrounded by the crowd, the four left the match stadium and returned to the school team room. "When are you free?" Chu Wai asked for Chen Qi. Lei Jin touched his chin, and then replied, "I'm free anytime." "Well, you decide the time yourself, go early and return early, and be careful," Chu Wai continued. "Okay." Lei Jin grinned. Immediately, Lei Jin turned his head to look at Chen Qi, and said, "Today is Friday, why don't you just go to Chen Qi today? If you take a plane, you will arrive in just over an hour." Chen Qi thought for a moment, nodded and said, "Yes." "Well, go back and pack your things, and leave in the afternoon," Lei Jin said. Afterwards, the two returned to their respective bedrooms to collect their things. This is the normal life of college students, especially for the students of the combat department. They may be away for a long time. When Chen Qi returned to the bedroom, Tang Qi greeted him immediately. "Brother Chen Qi, you've become a hot search on our school forum again." Chen Qi took the phone and looked at it, and found that it was the video of the previous battle with Lei Jin. He couldn't help muttering, "The speed is really fast." Then, he looked up at Tang Qi and said, "I have something to go to Hailong City, the time is not sure yet. If you don't come back from class by then, Brother Tang Qi will tell teacher for me." Tang Qi heard this, patted his chest and said, "No problem." Chen Qi nodded slightly and began to pack his things. That night, Hailong City, Electric Town. "Here, this is Electric Town, the last place before arriving at Electric Valley," Lei Jin said, looking at the brightly lit town not far away. The two of them flew directly to Hailong City this afternoon, and then came here by car, the electrical town. "Have a good rest tonight, register with the Pokemon Association tomorrow morning, and rent insulating suits and related props," Lei Jin said. In the end, Lei Jin reminded, "This is located on the border of Dongwang. The trainers stationed here are very powerful, and a series of regulations are quite strict. Let's just have a good rest at night and show the Byatean Gate." Well, although Lei Jin has a troublesome face, he is indeed quite careful. The two walked into the electrical town. Chen Qi looked around and found that although the electrical town was small in scale, its infrastructure was very complete, and there were even entertainment venues. Lei Jin explained, "Most of the trainers who enter Electric Valley will rest here and buy some necessary items, so this place is quite prosperous." Not long after, the two checked into a hotel. After Chen Qi entered the hotel, he first carefully checked whether there was any monitoring equipment in the room, and then he stood by the window and watched the street downstairs. "Walking in this kind of place, you must be careful," Chen Qi whispered. "Here is close to the border, good and bad people are mixed, there are all kinds of people, the uncertainty and danger are greatly increased. And unlike Hanhe Forest, which is a rookie leveling place, at least elite trainers can enter here, and professional level is not particularly rare. Although the law and order in Dongwang is generally good, it is better to be careful in this kind of place. The night is getting dark. Next day, the two came together to the Pokemon Association here, applying to enter Electric Valley. Hi, I'm Dang Ming. The person in charge of receiving them was a dark-skinned middle-aged man, who looked a little simple in appearance, but his eyes were particularly piercing. Welcome to Electric Town, both of you. Dang Ming forced a smile on his face, and then asked, is this the first time for you two to enter Electric Valley? It's my third time. After Lei Jin finished speaking, he pointed to Chen Qi next to him, it's his first time. Okay, please take out your trainer ID and register your basic information. Dang Ming said again. Lei Jin and Chen Qi handed out their trainer certificates at the same time. Lei Jin, 21 years old, professional trainer. Dang Ming shrank his pupils when he saw the information on the trainer's certificate, and then exclaimed, a genius. Lei Jin grinned loudly, his face full of complacency. Quote. Afterwards, Dang Ming looked at Chen Qi's trainer ID again, and said in a low voice, Chen Qi, 18 years old, elite trainer. In the next second, he suddenly raised his head and stared at Chen Qi's face. After a long while, he said, so there is a more powerful genius. After completing the information registration, Dang Ming looked at the two of them and said slowly, let me briefly talk about the precautions after entering Electric Valley. Lei Jin picked his ears and didn't care. This was the third time he listened to the precautions. Electrical Valley is very large, and it takes at least a week to complete it. I will give the two of you a map later. The information on it is very detailed, and the dangerous areas are marked. Please treat it with caution. In addition, there are many secret treasures in Electric Valley. If found, they will belong to trainer. In Electric Valley, trainers are allowed to fight each other, and it is forbidden to shoot and hurt others. Violators will be dealt with according to law. Dang Mingguan said. The last point, please wear insulating clothing in the Electrical Valley. If there is an accident, the trainer is responsible for the aftermath. W. Now, please follow me to get the insulation suit and related props. The insulating suit looks a lot like a spacesuit, but it is less bulky and lighter, and it does not affect the activity at all. The insulating suit is made of special materials, and adopts part of the principles of lightning rod ability and electrical engine ability. Not only will it not absorb lightning, but it will also actively repel lightning. Wearing an insulating suit, you can take a thunderbolt without feeling anything. Please take good care of it, and remember to return it when it comes out. Chen Qi listened silently, and then secretly thought about who is stronger between this thing and Ash's physique. Ash should still be strong, after all, he will fight against Thunderbolt every day. Wait, so isn't the Rockets trio better? After paying the rental fee, Chen Qi and Lei Jin left the Pokemon Association and headed towards Electric Valley. Along the way, there were several trainers wearing the same insulating suits that were still not loose. After walking along the road for about half an hour, the endless barbed wire came into view. Lei Jin said, this is the warning line, to prevent ordinary people from entering it by mistake, cross this line, and we will be there soon. The two crossed the cordon and walked for 10 minutes before Lei Jin said, here we are. Chen Qi looked around, and saw that the original clear sky turned into dark clouds at some point. The environment was oppressive, and dull thunderclaps sounded from time to time, which was deafening. Then, from time to time, dazzling arcs would jump out of the ground, making crackling noises. Seeing this, Chen Qi raised his eyebrows. His first impression of Electric Valley was very deep. Now you should know why you must wear insulating clothing. Lei Jin laughed beside him. It is indeed necessary. Chen Qi nodded. Lei Jin laughed loudly, then raised his hand and threw a Pokeball. Come out, Electivire. When the voice fell to the ground, white light bloomed, and a huge, yellow and black Pokemon appeared in front of Chen Guan. It has thick arms, and there are two things like detonators on its back. Pokemon. Electivire, electricity. Ability. Electric engine. Qualification. Elite. Level. LV41. Occupation. Professional grade Electivire. This Electivire is Lei Jin's trump card Pokemon. There are some wild Pokemon inhabiting Electric Valley, and they are likely to attack us. Lei Jin said. Also, there's a good place ahead for electivire training, he continued. Chen Qi suddenly nodded, and released Medig out of the shit. Lei Jin glanced at the heterochromatic Medig, then took out the map, and said, "The special magnetic field you are looking for is located deep in the electric valley, and we need to pass through this area. And in the middle of this area, there is a thunderstorm area." Thunderstorm area? Chen Qi looked slightly puzzled. Facing Chen Qi's puzzled eyes, Lei Jin patiently explained, "This thunderstorm area is in thunder from morning to night, and there are constant thunderstorms. Therefore, it has become the best place for many electric-type Pokemon to absorb electricity and exercise their electric-type skills." Even at this point, Lei Jin showed a strange expression, and continued, "There are other attribute Pokemon refining their bodies here. Tempering the flesh." Chen Qi chewed the word repeatedly. Lei Jin explained, "Some trainers believe that lightning can temper the body, let the lightning current pass through the limbs and bones, stimulate the cells, and achieve the effect of strengthening the body. After repeated attempts and research, this method has been proven to be effective. Therefore, every year, powerful trainers bring Pokemon to Electric Valley to temper their bodies through lightning and strengthen their physique. There is even a very powerful martial Taoist assist lightning tempering his own body, but such a powerful martial Taoist is very rare, and I have only heard of it." Chen Qi was taken aback for a moment, and then secretly complained, "What kind of fantasy script? Anyway, would you like to give your combuskin a try?" Lei Jin asked. Chen Qi heard this, thought for a while, then nodded and said, "Yes. Anyway, Pokemon has good resistance and won't take serious damage, so try it. It is indeed an exaggeration for human beings to resist lightning and temper their bodies. Okay, then let's go to the thunderstorm area first." Lei Jin nodded and led Chen Qi towards the thunderstorm area. As it got deeper, there were fewer and fewer companions, and the dark clouds above the head were so dense that they almost completely occupied the entire sky. Thunderbolts fell from time to time, shining like daylight. Electric Valley is steep and very dangerous. While paying attention to the road under your feet, you must try your best to avoid lightning strikes. An hour later, Electivire and Medig looked to the left at the same time, and a blue quadruped Pokemon came into view. It has a part of yellow mane above its head and body, and its scarlet eyes stare at Chen Qi and the others. Pokemon. Manectric Electricity. Ability. Lightning Rod. Qualification. Gym. Level. LV35 Elite. Manectric rarely appears in front of people. There is Manectric under the unnatural thundercloud. It is said that its residence is where the thunder and lightning fall. Thinking of the information about Manectric in his mind, Chen Qi looked up, and a thunderbolt fell from the distant sky. Well, it is exactly the same as the data record. Manectric is rumored to be able to electrically stimulate muscles to burst faster. In this way, it seems quite reasonable to temper the body with lightning. Chen Qi thought to himself. This Manectric is walking towards them slowly, looking quite hostile. Lei Jin crossed his arms and said slowly, "The Electric Valley is filled with rich electric energy, and the electric energy is the most violent. Whether it's a person or a Pokemon, if you live here for a long time, you will become irritable and explosive." Afterwards, he showed a big smile and said with a grin, "Thunderbolt, it has always been like this. Are you coming or am I?" he asked again. Chen Qi didn't hesitate. "I'll do it. Every wild Pokemon that dares to take the initiative to challenge is a valuable experience point, and Chen Qi will take them seriously." "Go, Medig," Chen Qi said. Meadow. Medig floated forward, his red eyes fixed on the opposite Manectric. Roar. Manectric let out a low growl, and took the lead in attacking. It stepped forward and came towards Metang Lunge. It opened its ferocious mouth, and the fangs inside sparkled spark. Thunder Fang. Psychic. Chen Qi spoke directly with a calm gaze. Meadow. Medig responded, and then his eyes glowed with a dazzling purple light, and Psychic's nose fluctuated accordingly. Suddenly, Psychic burst out invisible, and a dazzling purple light directly enveloped the whole body of the rushing Manectric. In the next second, Manectric froze in place, and was controlled by confusion and floated out of nowhere. Roar. Manectric roared furiously and struggled hard, but couldn't break free from confusion's shackles. Immediately afterwards, Manectric, shrouded in confusion, fell straight down and hit the ground heavily. Boom. The dust and smoke were set off, and Manectric was smashed to pieces. Standing aside, Lei Jin looked at this scene with a strange look in his eyes, and whispered, "Elite Metatang. What a perverted knife." Roar. Manectric staggered and stood up. It looked up to the sky and screamed, and a powerful electric current erupted from its yellow mane in an instant, and the thunder and light were amazing, and the momentum was astonishing. Discharge. Bang bang bang. At the same time, there was a muffled thunder in soaring in the sky, and a thunderbolt crashed down, which seemed to echo the Manectric at this time. The dazzling current spreads in all directions with Manectric as the center. The current spread to the outside, and Electivire grinned ferociously, and its two tails stood up straight up, like a lightning rod normal, sucking all the current into it. Well, a snack before dinner. Lei Jin licked his lips and laughed loudly. At the same time, the flicker current hits Matang. Protect. Chen Qi's voice sounded quietly. Meadow. Medig responded, his eyes flashed blue light, and emerald green barriers appeared all over his body, blocking all the current. Roar. Seeing that Medig was unharmed, Manectric roared, and then attacked Medig again, his fangs filled with electric current. Earthquake. Chen Qi said lightly. As the voice fell, Medig landed on the ground, and its two saffron-colored sharp claws smashed towards the ground continuously, forming 10 waves of poisonous waves one after another. After a while, these shock waves were superimposed, and the ground began to shake violently, breaking layer by layer like a spider web. The ground under Manetric's feet was suddenly sunken, and it howled unwillingly. After a while, the ground gradually regained its calm, only the cracks spoke of the tragic situation just now. At this time, Manectric collapsed powerlessly in a deep pit, his eyes had turned into circles. Earthquake, one of the biggest training achievements of Metatang during this period, can play a key role in many cases. Meadow. Seeing that Manetric completely lost the ability to fight, Medig let out an excited growl and flew around in midair. Boom. A thunderbolt fell with great momentum. Matang seemed to be attacked by Astonish, and flew back to Chen Qi's side again and again. Lei Jin abruptly swallowed the words of praise back into his throat, then smiled and said, "Your Medig has quite a personality." The corner of Chen Qi's mouth twitched, and then he glanced lightly at Matang beside him. "Go on," Lei Jin said. Chen Qi nodded slightly, and the two began to move forward towards the thunderstorm area. Along the way, from time to time, I encountered wild Pokemon that took the initiative to attack. Medig fought bravely, defeated them all, and gained a lot of experience points. Finally, after more than 2 hours, Lei Jin stopped, looked ahead and said in a deep voice, "The thunderstorm area has arrived." Chen Qi looked around and saw thunder and lightning billowing in front of him, lightning strikes crashing down. The speed and frequency of the strikes was much higher than that of walking all the way. Lei Jin pointed to the front and said, "The area in front belongs to the thunderstorm area, and the lightning elite Pokemon in front can bear it. The further you go to the back, the greater the power of thunder and lightning, and the higher the requirements for Pokemon's strength." Chen Qi glanced around, and found that there were many people around, like the two of them, standing on the edge, watching the thunderstorm area in front of them. On the outskirts of the thunderstorm area, there was a king standing in the same place wearing a jersey, and beside him stood a Luxray impressively. Luxray resembles an adult lion. Its face, hind legs, torso and the back of its front legs are blue, while most of its body is covered in fluffy black fur. Rumble. Above the man's head, a piercing thunderstorm was deafening, and then a bolt of lightning crashed down, landing precisely on Luxray. Roar. When the lightning struck, Luxray raised his head to the sky and screamed, his face showing pain. Black's mane was stimulated by the electricity, and it stood up high, and the dazzling thunder light completely swallowed it. Its pupils shone with golden luster, and its black mane almost turned into a saffron color, making it look like a mighty and domineering golden lion. Its trainer stayed aside, keeping an eye on Luxray. After a while, the electricity on Luxray's body gradually dissipated, and it returned to its original state, with a lot of sluggishness, but Saffron's eyes were bright. "Success," Lei Jin said. Then, with everyone watching, the man led Luxray out of the thunderstorm. As far as normal is concerned, it's not bad that an elite-level electric-type Pokemon can withstand a thunderbolt. Lei Jin said lightly. There are also trainers who believe that the better the Pokemon's aptitude and the better the breeder, the more lightning they can withstand. As for other attribute Pokemon, being able to resist a single lightning strike is the best, and 2 lightning strikes are very rare. Lei Jin said. Chen Qi nodded thoughtfully, and continued to look towards the thunderstorm area. In the thunderstorm area, several trainers stepped into it with their electric Pokemon and began to absorb electricity. Suddenly, there was a noise in my ear. The two turned their heads to look, and saw one person and one Chong walking slowly towards the thunderstorm area under the watchful eyes of everyone. This person looked to be in his 20s, with a slightly thin body, long and narrow eyes, and an aura that strangers should not get close to. A Pokemon with the same body shape followed closely. It was covered with crimson armor, with 2 pairs of translucent wings on its back and a pair of large pliers with patterns like eyes. Pokemon. Scizor, Worm, Steel. Ability. Technical Master. Qualification. Master. Level. LV39 Elite. Infinitely close to Pro-level Scizor. This is the first trainer to challenge today. Scizor, so handsome. I don't know if it will work or not. With the small body of Scizor, it is estimated that it will hang. Onlookers on the fringes murmured. Lei Jin looked at this scene, folded his arms, and showed a funny smile. There is a good show to watch. Chen Qi's eyes flashed slightly. He raised his hand and threw the Pokeball, releasing Combuskin. Observe carefully, he said softly. Charlo. Combuskin responded in a low voice with sharp eyes. With everyone watching, the man and Scizor walked into the thunderstorm area and stood on the outskirts. Overhead was covered with dark clouds, strong winds, lightning and thunder, like a doomsday scene. The man turned a blind eye and waited quietly with Scizor. Exclamation mark, exclamation mark. Suddenly, a thunderbolt struck down, carrying mighty power, towards Scizor slash. Scizor looked up at the thunderbolt, his eyes calm. In the next second, the thunder exploded on his body, and dazzling arcs wrapped around his body. Scizor's pupils shrank, and he let out a dull sound of pain, his body contending with the thunder. Hold on to. At this time, the skinny man said in a deep voice. Scizor's eyes suddenly lit up. He gritted his teeth, endured the pain spreading all over his body, his consciousness blurred for a while, and smelling salts for a while. I don't know how long it took. The electric arc wrapped around the whole body gradually dissipated. It finally let out a long sigh of relief, opened its eyes, and their eyes were piercing. At the same time, as if normal had been tempered into steel, its crimson armor shone with an Orberg-like luster, before it was even more powerful. Seeing this, Chen Qi murmured in a low voice, although Scizor looks thin, its body is as hard as Orberg, and its muscles are made of metal. It really lives up to its reputation. Seeing that Scizor successfully resisted the lightning, bursts of cheers immediately rang out from the edge. Yes, the first challenger has succeeded. This Scizor breeder is not bad, it has almost broken through to the professional level. The people who eat melons are excited. Lei Jin said loudly from the side. Did you see that? As long as you can resist the next thunderbolt, the effect of improving Pokemon's physique is very obvious. This is lightning body tempering. After saying these words, he strode towards the thunderstorm area without looking back, and laughed at the same time. I'll go back as soon as I go. Under everyone's gaze, Lei Jin led the Electivire towards the thunderstorm area. They passed through the outer area all the way, and came directly to the central area, where the thunder and lightning were more violent and more powerful. Every lightning strike strikes the ground and rock smash stones. The power and influence are frightening. Lei Jin raised his head, looked up at the dense dark clouds that were preparing for a thunderstorm, and stretched his neck. Roar! Electivire roared up to the sky, showing an arrogant and fierce smile, and the 2 tails behind it stood up high. Boom! Not long after, the dark clouds brewed, and a thunderbolt smashed down, directly hitting the Electivire. Roar! Electivire's face was grinning ferociously. Her scarlet eyes showed rage. She beat her chest and screamed excitedly. Electric ember splashed, and thunder roared all over her body. The current flickers, the lightning flashes, and the 2 tails attract electricity all the time. After a minute or two, the Electivire let out a cheerful roar, and the 2 horns on its head violently emitted blue and white electric ember. This is a sign that the storage is fully charged. It's okay. Seeing this, Lei Jin said loudly. Roar! Electivire roared excitedly, and the thunder gradually dissipated. Afterwards, Lei Jin showed a satisfied smile, and returned to Chen Qi amidst many admiring eyes. How about it? Do you want to try it now? Lei Jinyang raised his head and said with a smile. Chen Qi said without hesitation, of course. After the words fell, he took Combuskin to the outskirts of the thunderstorm area. The melon eaters once again cast their eyes on Chen-Chi, and the skinny man with scissor also looked at him. Yo, it looks quite young. Elite level Combuskin, I guess it's not enough. Wouldn't this be the first unlucky guy today? Outskirts. The ground is powered on, ember is splashing, arcs are flickering, and there are charred black stones all around. Chen-Chi let out a breath, then looked up at soaring in the sky. The dark clouds are beginning to brew the next thunderstorm. Combuskin stood quietly, ready for battle. The dull thunder exploded in the ear from time to time, the thunder and lightning rolled, and a bolt of lightning slammed down, like a sharp sword, splitting the dark clouds, driving away the darkness, and the dazzling thunder flashed in front of my eyes. Boom! Lightning strikes the ground not far from Combuskin, and the ground cracks in an instant, and stone chips fly across. Boom! Rumble! Medag was suspended on the edge, looking at Combuskin nervously, nervous and looking forward to it. Boss Combuskin, come on. Strange to say, Flash Metang is extremely precious, but the onlookers here just glanced at it and then turned their heads to the thunderstorm area. It seems that Flash Metatang is far less attractive than the thunderstorm zone. Also, other shiny Pokemon might still be worth seeing, but this is the Flash Metang, a symbol of status and wealth. Nobody wants to get themselves into unnecessary trouble. Rumble. At the same time, with the sound of a deafening thunderstorm, a thunderbolt fell, precisely landing on Combuskin. Charlo. Combuskin was completely swallowed by the lightning in an instant, and the electric current spread all over his body, making crackling sounds every second. Charlo. Combuskin is bathed in the thunder light, but its orange-yellow eyes are piercing, and its body is stable, still as motionless as a mountain. Combuskin didn't feel unbearable pain, it was a numb feeling, and his whole body was a little itchy. Seeing Combuskin's normal expression and very relaxed expression, Scissor's trainer frowned and his face was full of doubts. Why do you feel that the thunder didn't hurt? Someone muttered. Ray is all the same, but this chicken is a little special. I feel like this little brother can also succeed in the challenge. Lei Jin crossed his arms and stared closely at Combuskin, who was bathed in the light of lightning. A flash of surprise flashed between his brows, and he murmured, as expected of Combuskin, who can defeat Raichu. Thunderstorm area. Outskirts. The thunder light gradually receded, and Combuskin let out a soft cry, and its eyes seemed to be covered with a layer of light golden light. It moved a bit, and felt that the body was full of active energy particles, and the contest condition was unprecedentedly powerful. In the process of bathing in thunder, it didn't feel the pain of Scizor, but it was very enjoyable, just like having a full body massage, and the body and mind were happy. Chen-Chi looked at Combuskin carefully, and after confirming that it was not harmed, he called up its data panel. The level has not increased, and the experience points have not increased, but Combuskin's aura is stronger. Remembering what Lei Jin said earlier, Chen-Chi looked at Combuskin and asked aloud, "Do you want to continue?" Charlo. Combuskin nodded as expected, it enjoyed the feeling just now very much. One person and one pet continued to stay where they are. Seeing this, the melon-eating crowd became noisy again. This is a challenge twice. It's been a long time since I saw a Pokemon who dared to challenge twice. Do you think Combuskin can succeed? That's enough. Although it took the first Thunderbolt, it must have consumed most of its physical strength, and it will only become more and more difficult. That's right, the next Pokemon is there from time to time, and there are not many Pokemon that are picked up twice a year. Lei Jin didn't speak, just stared closely at Chen-Chi and Combuskin, looking forward to their next performance. Soon, the second Thunderbolt fell with a bang, and the dazzling white light illuminated the thunderstorm area, making it suddenly daytime. Chen-Chi looked up and thought to himself, it seems that the power hasn't changed much. Although the power has not changed much, most of the Pokemon have exhausted their energy just by catching the first lightning strike, and the contest condition has dropped seriously. In this way, it is naturally difficult to catch the second lightning strike. Thinking of this, Chen-Chi turned his head and glanced at Combuskin, who was looking bright and expectant. Well, it seems that it shouldn't be a big problem to catch the second lightning strike. The thunder thundered down, engulfing Combuskin once again. The violent thunder light was dancing and jumping like electric snakes. After a while, Combuskin let out a faint dull sound. It finally felt a sense of pain, but it was still acceptable. Its body is constantly absorbing the power of thunder and lightning, and the power of assist thunder and lightning tempers the body again and again, improving its physical fitness. The onlookers stared at Combusken bathed in lightning without blinking their eyes, looking forward to the final result. Charlo. Combusken made a slight dull sound again, it closed its eyes, and a flowing flame burst out from its body, intertwined and entangled with the thunder and lightning. This is. Looking at this scene, Chen Guan was slightly taken aback. As time passed slowly, the thunder and lightning finally calmed down, the current dissipated, and the surroundings returned to normal. Charlo. Combusken let out a deep breath, then slowly opened his eyes, and in an instant, a golden light flashed in his eyes. At this time, the aura emanating from its body is stronger and more surging than before, and at the same time, there is an extra sharp aura. It worked. Catch 2 thunderbolts in a row, this Combusken has the qualifications of an elite. I'm going, where did this genius trainer come from? There was an uproar among the melon-eating crowd. Scissor's trainer looked at the unscathed Combusken, opened his mouth, and doubted life. Meadow. Seeing that Combusken successfully survived the thunder and lightning, Metang yelled excitedly and flew around. As expected of you. Lei Jin touched his prickly stubble and sighed. No injuries this time? Chen Qi asked. Charlo. Combusken shook his head first, then pointed to the dark clouds overhead. Do you still want to continue to challenge? Chen Qi looked strange. Charokolo. Combusken nodded, expectant look on his face. Chen Qi raised his head, looked up at the dark clouds in the sky, pondered for a moment and said, that's fine. Try to see where your limit is. The voice fell. Chen Qi and Combusken stood in place, waiting for the third thunder. I know, do you still want to continue to challenge? Outrageous, in my impression, there seems to be no Pokemon that can catch 3 times in a row, right? Yes, the next 2 in a row is the limit. Seeing this, Lei Jin silently took out his phone and turned on the camera mode. Student, let me record this great moment for you. Rumble. The dark clouds began to roll, brewing terrifying thunder, and the dull thunder continued to explode. Boom. Finally, the third thunderbolt struck straight down with great force. Combusken stared closely at the falling thunderbolt, with no fear on his face, but full of anticipation. In the next second, it was swallowed by thunder. The crackling sound erupted instantly, electricity splashed everywhere, and Chen Qi took several steps back again and again. Charlo. This time, Combusken made a painful sound directly, and the endless pain spread from the outside to the inside, spreading all over his body, making his face distorted and the pain unbearable. Seeing this, Chen Qi frowned slightly, and the psychic in his body was ready to go. Combusken is located in the center of the thunder, and it is under unimaginable pressure. The endless thunder is like a big hand, tearing its flesh again and again, and tackle its body again and again. This is the most violent current, and this is the divine power of nature. Charlo. Combusken clenched his teeth and let out an angry roar. His eyes were covered with a layer of dazzling golden light, but his consciousness gradually blurred, and his eyes became darker and darker. Charlo. Combusken roared, and suddenly flames burst out from his body, fighting against the violent current and killing each other. Its consciousness began to return, and the flames on its body became more vigorous. At the same time, the lightning in the nearby area seemed to gather from all directions, and all fell on Combusken. The thunder blazed, the flames soared into the sky, and the momentum was vast. The onlookers watched this scene and fell silent for a while. This. 683 Lei Jin's hand holding the phone trembled slightly, and he was momentarily at a loss for words. Can such a scene really be caused by an elite Pokemon? Charlo. This time, Combusken intuitively felt the pressure doubled, the flame was gradually suppressed by the thunder, and the flame gradually began to dissipate. Severe pain began to erode the whole body, and the consciousness began to blur again. Charlo. Charlo. Combusken roared unwillingly, and the orange-yellow comb stood up high. The flames are almost gone. Chen Qi bit his lower lip, closely watching Combusken's every move. Once it can't hold on, he will immediately use Psychic to catch the lightning. At this moment, he finally truly felt the difficulty of challenging the physical limit. Time and time again, he challenged the limits of his physiology and hovered on the verge of death again and again. Combusken's eyes were about to close, his figure began to stagger, and the flames on his body had disappeared. It seemed powerless to fight. Hey, it finally failed. It's a pity, it's just a little bit closer. I thought I could see a miracle. How can there be so many miracles? Scizor stared at Combusken with his tawny eyes, and subconsciously waved his huge pair of pliers. Meadow. Medig looked at Combusken nervously, and let out a cheer. Charlo. The next second, under the watchful eyes of everyone, Combusken suddenly opened his eyes, and the flames in his eyes began to burn. Its whole body breath rose rapidly. Suddenly, a dazzling white light rose up, completely covering it. This is evolution. Looking at this scene, Chen Qi's pupils shrank, and a surprised smile appeared on his face. Yes, this is the most magical and moving light in the Pokemon world, the light of evolution. The current is still flickering, the thunder is still roaring, and Combusken, shrouded in the light of evolution, slowly opens his eyes. Under the shroud of the light of evolution, Combusken's eyes bloomed with a slight saffron-colored luster, like the scorching golden sun. Finally, the light of evolution gradually dissipated, Combusken's stature suddenly rose. No, it can no longer be called Combusken. This is the evolution of Combusken, Blaziken. Blaziken has a head of white hair and a V-shaped comb, a bandaged razor claw and strong legs. With those deep blue eyes, it highlights its extraordinary temperament. Chat. Suddenly Blaziken's wrists and feet sprayed out strong flames, and the flames burst into flames, exuding unprecedented strength. The flames fought with the thunder that had not yet dissipated, and the fire dragon and the thunder dragon roared and fought in midair. Chat. Finally, along with Blaziken's beeping growl sounded, endless streams of flames emerged, directly devouring the thunder. After a long while, the sky returned to calm. Blaziken turned around, quietly watching Chen Qi with blue pupils, and the flames emerging from his body gradually calmed down. You have grown up. Chen Qi looked at Blaziken, who was now taller than himself, and smiled gratifiedly. This evolution is really a surprise. Originally, according to what Chen Ma said, it will take some time for Combusken to evolve into Blaziken. Maybe it's the lightning that has accumulated enough energy. Then under the oppression of thunder, the final evolution was successfully completed. Chen Qi secretly guessed. In short, evolution is a good thing. The Blaziken form is much more handsome than the Combusken form, and its strength has been greatly improved. Now it is very good at boxing and kicking fighting moves. Moreover, its bounce ability has been further enhanced, and even a 30-story building can easily jump over it. All in all, Chen Qi is very satisfied with the evolved Blaziken, and can't wait to try its evolved strength. Fringe. Evolved in the light of lightning, this Blaziken's combat power will be ridiculously strong. In addition, the lightning-quenching body has the effect of washing marrow and cutting bones, and its potential and upper limit have also been improved. Ha ha ha, I'm lucky to be here today to witness the birth of a miracle. 3 thunderstorms in a row, great. Scizor gazed at Blaziken opposite him from a distance, and grabbed the giant pliers in his hands. Seeing this, its trainer showed a stiff smile. We still need to work harder. Lei Jin took a deep breath, then put down his phone, and muttered, fortunately, I had the foresight to take pictures of all the scenes just now. Roar. Electivire beat its chest excitedly. It just saw Blaziken catch 3 thunderbolts in a row, and it was very excited. Metumtu. Medig watched Blaziken with wide eyes and flew around happily. Come on, get out. Thunderstorm area. Chen Qi raised his eyes and looked at Blaziken in front of him. Chat. Blaziken nodded, then walked in front of Chen Qi, hugged him directly, and then exerted force with his powerful leg muscles. He leapt forward, spanning dozens of meters in an instant. Chen Qi squinted his eyes, enjoying the feeling of the strong wind hitting his face, his black hair swaying in the breeze. Well, it always feels like this is Ash's treatment. As Blaziken's trainer, he should be the same as Blaziken, with a jump of tens of meters, shuttling back and forth between tall buildings. In a short time, Blaziken landed on the edge, in front of Rep. Many onlookers kept their eyes on Blaziken. Chen Qi shook his head, which was beaten by the strong wind, and then looked at Lei Jin. Lei Jin took the initiative to ask, ha ha ha, do you feel good? Chen Qi said without hesitation, there is a feeling of flying like lightning. Hearing this, Lei Jin let out a hearty laugh, and his sharp face was full of smiles. Congratulations, you have not only created an unprecedented record, but also successfully evolved Combusken into Blaziken. Chen Qi sighed. To be honest, I didn't think of it either. Lei Jin continued. The news that Combuskin has received 3 thunderbolts in a row will soon spread throughout Electric Valley, and you will be famous here soon. The word, also, is used very quintessentially. Chen Qi didn't comment, just asked, how much time do I need to rest after the lightning quenches my body? Lei Jin touched his chin, and then said, there is no hard and fast standard for this thing. Pokemon have different physiques and different situations. It's just that for ordinary Pokemon, it needs to rest for at least half a year to digest the lightning in the body, so most trainers come to Electric Valley once a year. Normal, after the lightning quenches his body, he will then absorb the rich electric energy in Electric Valley, and fight with wild electric Pokemon, and then he can go out. After hearing these words, Chen Qi suddenly nodded. Would you like to give Matang a body tempering with lightning? Immediately, Chen Qi turned his head to look at Matang suspended in midair, thinking. Although Metig is not an electric type, it can master 2 electric type moves, electromagnetic levitation and thunder punch, which must be more or less related to the electric type. Also, electricity can generate magnetism. In this way, if there is more electricity in the body, will it generate more magnetism? The stronger Metatang is. Thoughts flashed in my mind one after another. Meadow. Seeing Chen Qi looking at him, Matang turned pale with fright, subconsciously took several steps back. Lei Jin asked, your Metig should break through to the elite level soon, right? Chen Qi nodded and said, yes, I just broke through to the elite level. Lei Jin nodded slightly, and suggested, it's better to let it absorb the magnetic force first, and then to quench the body with lightning, it's safer. When Chen Qi heard this, he thought about it secretly, and thought it was a good idea, so he nodded. Lei Jin grinned and said, okay, I'll find out if there is a special magnetic field around here. After the words fell, Jin took out the map and looked carefully. Not long after, Lei Jin pointed to the lower left corner of ground and said in a deep voice, this is a magnetic mountain area. As the name suggests, it is a mountain full of special magnetic fields. There is no lightning in the Sishan area, and there are more wild Pokemon living here, and there are even very powerful Pokemon. Well, so avoid the danger zone. Lei Jin muttered for a while, and finally determined the next way forward. Okay, let's go and try to arrive before dark. Lei Yin said. No problem. Chen Qi responded out loud. Afterwards, the two started to head towards the Sishan area, and the crowd of onlookers looked away, but the discussion about Chen Qi and Blaziken just opened up Veilstone. By the way, there are many free-range Pokemon living in the Sishan area. Lei Jin said suddenly. Chen Qi was slightly taken aback, subconsciously wondering, a Pokemon that has been freed. Lei Jin explained. Some powerful trainers put their Pokemon here to occupy the territory and let them practice in a special environment. This method is very common. The more special the environment is, the more dangerous it is, such as oceans, snow mountains, glaciers, volcano, swamps, etc., the more likely there are Pokemon that are stalked. In some cases, the free-range method is more beneficial than staying with the trainer. Chen Qi understood that it was Ash's favorite way of stalking. Raise old birds in the Charizard Valley, raise Bidiao in the forest for 20 years, put various Pokemon in Professor Oak's laboratory, or hand Pokemon to legendary Pokemon for training. Then these places occupied by Pokemon, can we go in? Chen Qi asked the key question. Of course, Lei Jin showed a big smile, as long as you can defeat them. In the Pokemon world, the strong are respected. If you fail in the battle, the original Pokemon will leave voluntarily. Lei Jin crossed his arms, stared at Chen Qi, and said with a grin, the land is all robbed. Of course, the Sishan area in front of us is huge, and there must be unoccupied places. Chen Qi nodded thoughtfully, and said, let's go there first. It would be best if there is unclaimed land, if not, for the sake of Metatang's practice, then grab a piece of land. Several hours later, the two successfully entered the magnetic mountain area. The Sishan area is very strange. Although there is no lightning and thunder in the thunderstorm area, it somehow gives people a heavy oppressive feeling, as if there is a heavy object pressing on the heart, and you can't breathe. This area is filled with all kinds of magnetic waves. If you stay here for a long time, it will have a bad effect on the human brain and organs. Chen Qi and Lei Jin wore insulating clothing, which could completely isolate the adverse effects of magnetic waves. The impact on Pokemon is minimal, and it will even promote the growth and evolution of Pokemon. Meadow. As soon as he came here, Medig was extremely excited, flying around at high speed in midair, and his body was filled with invisible magnetic waves. It continuously absorbs these magnetic waves, sucks them into the body, and transforms them into magnetic force used by itself. The stronger the magnetic force in the body, the faster Metatang's flying speed, and the stronger the psychic produced at the same time. Medig flew at the forefront, looking for the most beneficial magnetic wave with his intuition, and the two followed closely behind it. The weather in the Sishan area is unpredictable. It is sunny for a while, cloudy for a while, there are even strong winds, and thunder roars, but no thunder falls. Staying in this kind of place for a long time can challenge the physiological limits of humans and Pokemon. Lei Jin sighed. Chen Qi looked at the surrounding scene and subconsciously shook his head. It's too depressing and heavy here. It's okay to stay for a short time, but if it's a long time, it's probably going to drive people crazy. Along the way, from time to time, I encountered wild Pokemon who took the initiative to attack, and Blaziken made a bold move and defeated them directly and easily. After a long time, under the leadership of Metang, they came to a Tianshan mountain with big ups and downs and many cliffs. It looks very deserted here. Looking around, there are no plants. Other than that, it's more ordinary, but very attractive to Metang. The various magnetic waves here have different appeals to Pokemon. Maybe Medig likes this taste. Lei Jin said slowly. Chen Qi nodded slightly, watched Medig slowly fall on the ground, closed his eyes, as if he was beginning to absorb the magnetic wave. Okay, this process should last for a while, let's camp here. Seeing Lei Jin, Taguchi said. Although this is the Sishan area, it doesn't have much impact on camping. Anyway, I wear insulating clothes. Okay, Chen Qi nodded. At this moment, a violent lightning flash fell on the ground in front of them instantly, drawing a dividing line, directly blasting the ground, and the broken stones flew. Roar. Seeing this, Electivire thumped her chest and roared, her eyes flickering fiercely. Chat. Blaziken looked intently, and saw a black and white zebra walking out slowly, with two spark-like white horns standing on top of its head. The white mane on the back extends into a tail in the shape of a ball of electric ember explosions. Li Nuo Jiao. Pokemon. Zebstrika Electricity. Ability. Lightning Rod. Qualification. Master. Level. LV41. Occupation. At this time, Zebstrika slowly walked towards them, her blue eyes revealed a fierce light, and her white mane flashed a violent spark. Zebstrika has a violent temper, and when it gets angry, it will discharge in all directions from its fur. Obviously, this is its territory. Its warning is to leave quickly. Lei Jin folded his arms and raised the corners of his mouth slightly. Do you want me to drive you away? Afterwards, Lei Jin looked at Chen Qi and asked. Before Chen Qi could speak, Blaziken took a step forward, screaming in a low voice. It wants to fight. Chen Qi stared at Blaziken, who was full of eagerness to try. His thoughts changed, and he asked, Are you sure? Chat. Meeting Chen Qi's inquiring gaze, Blaziken looked firm and nodded heavily. What about professional level? After evolution, Flame is full of confidence in his current strength. Chen Qi stared closely at Blaziken, his jet black eyes and deep blue eyes met each other, and after a while, he said softly, Be careful. Lei Jin looked at this scene with a surprised expression, and said in disbelief, Are you sure you want Blaziken to fight Zebstrika? Yang. No matter how powerful Blaziken is, it is still at the same level. But Zebstrika, but a real professional grade. There is an insurmountable gap between the elite level and the professional level. It is difficult to cross this gap. Lei Jin is not optimistic about this. But seeing Chen Qi's serious expression, he opened his mouth, and finally laughed loudly. I like this kind of character of facing difficulties. Electrical Valley. Magnetic Mountain. Blaziken stepped forward slowly, confronting Zebstrika on the opposite side, while Metang closed his eyes tightly to absorb the magnetic waves. Chen Qi first looked at Blaziken, and then at Metang, with a lot of thoughts in his mind. At the beginning, I received Torchic as Earl Dervish Pokemon because I needed a Pokemon to drive the early stage, so that he could maintain sufficient competitiveness in the early stage. Torchic did this. It grew at an astonishing speed, won the first place in the field military training for Chen Qi, and won many battles. Now, it has evolved into Blaziken, helped Chen-Chi smoothly through the early stage. Now Medig and Kirlia have gradually grown up, and they will soon be able to stand on their own. Next, Chen-Chi will focus on breeder Metatang and Kirlia, allowing them to take over the burden from Blaziken. Thoughts flashed, and the battle on the field was ready to go. Suddenly, Zebstrika took a step forward and started running at an astonishing speed, followed by a deafening thunder. Zebstrika has lightning-like instant explosive power, almost rushing to Blaziken in the blink of an eye. At the same time, it was covered with violent lightning, and the thunder sounded like 1,000 birds chirping, heading towards Blaziken takedown. Spark, fire punch, Chen-Chi calmly spoke with a calm gaze. After Combusken evolved into Blaziken, he instantly comprehended multiple skills, including fire punch. Blaziken's wrist flamethrower, the ground is moved, and the spit-ups Blaziken instantly burns the ground black. Immediately afterwards, its figure was like light, its fists were entangled in blazing flames, and it took the initiative to meet Zebstrika. Boom! Suddenly, Zebstrika collides violently with Blaziken. Blaziken threw out both fists, flames shone in front of his eyes. He blasted dozens of punches like a Horacio shower, blasting Zebstrika's body one after another. Zebstrika also hit Blaziken's abdomen with his head, and the lightning burst, causing a considerable body damage to him. Boom! After a short confrontation in the first round, the two Pokémon backed up a few steps at the same time, panting heavily, and stared at each other. Lei Jin frowned, stared at Blaziken with incredulous eyes, and whispered, "It can really fight against professional Pokémon. Is there a way for the rest of the new students to survive? Should we just admit defeat and surrender?" Chen-Chi looked at Blaziken, who was on equal footing with Zebstrika, and nodded slightly, showing a satisfied smile. Evolution is indeed the fastest way to improve Pokémon's strength. After evolving into Blaziken, its combat power has soared, and it can already compete with the first-time professional-level Pokémon. Of course, this is inseparable from Chen-Chi's caring breeder on weekdays, and it is also closely related to the previous thunder and lightning. Hard training day and night can achieve today's strength. Zebstrika stood on the spot, raised and lowered his right front hoof, his blue eyes fixed on Blaziken opposite him. The flashing lightning on his white mane became more violent, and there seemed to be muffled thunder. Suddenly, Zebstrika raised his head to the sky and screamed, soaring in the sky. Dark clouds billowed, and the white mane gathered endless lightning in an instant, gathered in a terrifying electric column in an instant, and came towards Blaziken through the air. The momentum is amazing. Thunderbolt. Seeing this, Chen-Chi looked calm and ordered, "Sword dance." Chat. After the voice fell, Blaziken stood on the spot. Rapid Spin got up. The speed became faster and faster. It turned into an afterimage and was invisible, sending out layers of air waves. Boom! The thunderbolt slashed down suddenly, hitting Blaziken, who was on the rapid spin, but in the next second it seemed to encounter a rebounding barrier, was bounced out, hit the ground, and exploded the gravel. How is it possible? Lei Jin looked at this scene, horrified, and shouted loudly. Thunderbolt bounced off of what? Chen-Chi smiled slightly and explained, "This is called the Shield of Retaliation." The counter shield, also known as the counter shield, is one of Ash's classic tactics and has many high-gloss scenes. In this way, Blaziken not only blocked the thunderbolt but also improved his own attack. Then, Chen-Chi took the initiative to order, "Blaze Kick." Chat. Blaziken responded, and immediately moved ground, his wrists blazing into the sky. With the blessing of acceleration ability, its speed increased sharply, and it rushed towards Zebstrika at a high speed. Immediately afterwards, hot flames emerged from both legs, and it squinted and kicked towards Zebstrika. Zebstrika didn't react. It was kicked with a powerful force. The flames spread along the white mane in an instant, and then it was kicked several meters away, and fell heavily on the ground. The dust was flying, and Zebstrika stood up with difficulty, panting heavily, and let out a furious hiss. It looked rage in the eyes, its anger value soared, and the violent thunder light was like electric snakes, swimming in midair. Immediately, electric snakes surrounded Zebstrika's body, as if covering her with a layer of dazzling thunder armor. It stepped forward, wearing thunder armor, and charged Blaziken with astonishing momentum. The deafening thunder sounded in the ear, and every time it took a step, the ground was struck by the violent electric current around it, and it was scorched black. Wild charge. We used Flare Blitz. Chen-Chi looked at this scene, but shouted loudly. Flare Blitz, the ultimate fire move. Chat. Blaziken responded in a low voice. Endless flames sprang up from his wrists and legs, and these flames burned blazingly in an instant, covering Blaziken completely like flowing normal. It is full of fighting spirit in the fire, and its momentum is rising steadily. Boom! Flare Blitz and Wild Charge collided halfway. Between the two Pokémon, terrifying energies were intertwined. Shock waves swayed in all directions, and the airflow surged wildly, obscuring the field of vision. Chen Qi squinted his eyes, looking at the intense scene in front of him. BCCB. With the gradual improvement of Pokémon's strength, the battle situation has become more and more intense, and the scene of small fights in the past no longer exists. Even after reaching the elite champion level, it is very common to shake mountains and seas at every turn. Exclamation mark, exclamation mark, exclamation mark. The airwaves gradually dissipated, and the two were able to see everything in front of them clearly. Zebstrika was covered in bruises and collapsed on the ground, eyes closed. Blaziken stood proudly aside, panting slightly, with obvious scars on his chest. Either way, Blaziken wins. With the strength of the elite level, abruptly defeated the thunder and lightning spot of the professional level. The large number of experience points brought by the cross-level victory speaks volumes about the difficulty of this battle. Lei Jin stood there blankly for a long time, and sighed suddenly. When the time comes for the freshman exchange competition, if you ask Blaziken to stand beside you, the competition committee must award you the championship. This Blaziken, non-class Pokémon, is invulnerable. Chen Qi smiled and replied, "It's still far away. It's only on par with the professional level, and it's only just started." The reason why this level is called professional level is precisely because it is the threshold from amateur to professional. Ordinary trainers train hard. Pokémon has a certain probability to break through to the elite level, but the professional level is different. Talent and hard work are indispensable. There is an invisible watershed between the elite level and the professional level. To become a professional trainer, in a place like Chuanan City, one can already be regarded as the upper class of society. Therefore, Father Chen has lamented more than once that for a trainer with great ambitions, the professional level is just the beginning. The further you go to the back, the more difficult it is to improve your strength. It is not unusual to have no progress for several years. Thoughts flashed. Chen Qi took out the healing spray to heal Blaziken. Not long after, Zebstrika woke up, glanced at Blaziken, and then walked away without looking back. As night fell gradually, the evening wind was light, and it was full of desolate scenes. If a person is here, it is inevitable to feel lonely. Chen Qi and Lei Jin set up the tent, raised the courtney, and the bright flames illuminated the surroundings. One of the benefits of owning fire-type Pokémon is that you don't need to carry a lighter with you when you go out. Meadow. At this time, Medig, who had been absorbing magnetic waves, finally opened his eyes and floated in front of Chen Qi. The appearance is not much different from before, but it exudes surging magnetic force all the time, and it looks energetic and radiant. Meadow. Medig called softly, then swept his body and flew into the distance. This speed. Seeing this, Chen Qi was shocked. Compared with the previous one, the speed of Metang has been significantly improved, and the speed exceeds 100 km per hour. Medig relies on the magnetic force in the body to fly. The more magnetic force there is, the faster the flying speed will be. In addition, Medig's psychic level has been significantly improved now, later verified. Chen Qi nodded in satisfaction, and when Medig returned, let him use superpower skills. Well, although it is not as good as himself, it is already quite good in the elite level. Although the level has not improved, the combat power has improved significantly. That's right, let's try lightning body tempering tomorrow. Chen Qi thought to himself. It's just that the whole body of Metang is composed of magnets, and it is debatable that lightning quenching performance can't work. But it doesn't matter. Medig has rough skin and thick flesh, and has a little power in his body, so it's no problem to receive a few lightning bolts. Thoughts flashed by. After dinner, Chen Qi checked Blaziken's newly mastered skills again. Its newly mastered skills are Fire Punch, Blaze Kick, High Jump Kick, Flare Blitz. These four are very practical skills in battle, powerful. Coupled with Blaziken's current physical fitness, it is really invincible at the elite level. With all kinds of thoughts in mind, Chen Qi fell into a deep sleep. The next day, Chen Qi and Lei Jin woke up early, left the Sishan area, and headed for the thunderstorm area. This time, Matang was full of vigor and confidence, and took the initiative to attack, defeating all the attacking wilds. At noon, the two arrived at the edge of the thunderstorm area zone. Like yesterday, the fringes were full of onlookers. As soon as Chen Qi came here with a strange Metatang, there seemed to be the trainer who was there yesterday among the onlookers, directly telling others what happened yesterday. Not long after, everyone looked at Chen Qi with curious eyes. I'll go first. Lei Jin waved his hand towards Chen Qi, and strode to the center of the thunderstorm area. This time he was accompanied by a novice professional Ampharos. After yesterday's contact, Chen Qi knew that Electivire is Lei Jin's trump card Pokemon, Ampharos, and that very close to professional level Raichu are his main Pokemon. Lei Jin's goal is to let Raichu break through to the professional level before the college league. 3 professional Pokemon have been able to achieve a good result in the college student league. Thunder clouds billowed, flash slashed down, Ampharos bathed in the thunder light, and howled freely. Because Ampharos didn't need to temper his body, he was taken back by Lei Jin after absorbing enough power. Subsequently, Lei Jin dispatched Raichu to absorb the power. After a long time, Lei Jin returned to Chen Qi with Raichu, who had finished absorbing power, grinning and said, "It's your turn." Hearing this, Chen Qi turned his head and glanced at Medig suspended in midair, and nodded to it. Meadow. Medig's eyes widened, with a troubled look on his face. Chen Qi said lightly, "I'm still waiting for you to evolve into a mighty, domineering and invincible Metagross. This little tribulation is nothing to you." Matang's eyes lit up when he heard this, and he couldn't wait to rush towards the thunderstorm area. It needs to evolve, to become the mighty, domineering and invincible Metagross. Seeing Matang's reaction like this, Chen Qi finally showed a gratified smile. This little brother went in again. Yeah, this time it's Medig. Medig's body is made of magnets. Does he need to be quenched by lightning? Matang of a different color, I don't know which big family he is from. Shish, be careful with your words and deeds. The onlookers cast attention on Chen Qi. Chen Qi and Matang came to the outskirts, waiting for the lightning to strike. At this time, Medig fantasizes about the scene where he evolves into a Metagross. He is full of fighting spirit and can't wait to bathe in the thunder, and evolve in the thunder just like Blaziken. Chen Qi sized Metatang carefully, and then said, "When the lightning strikes, remember to use electromagnetic levitation." Medig can use electromagnetic levitation and use electricity to generate magnetism, which indirectly shows that electricity is stored in its body. If the electricity contained in the lightning can be absorbed into the body, then the electricity in the body will increase, and the magnetic force generated will increase accordingly. Does this count as an indirect boost to Medig's strength? Chen Qi was full of curiosity about this. Rumble. Thunderclouds began to brew above Medig's head, and the rumbling sound of thunder continued to explode. From time to time, lightning struck other grounds, illuminating the entire thunderstorm area. Finally, a thunderbolt struck Matang. Its momentum is extremely swift and violent, with an astonishing momentum, which makes people look at it as if facing the mighty power of heaven, giving people a strong sense of oppression. Meadow. Medig yelled, cheering for himself. Suddenly, the Pokeball on Chen Qi's waist shook, a red light shot out, and Blaziken stood firmly beside him. Blaziken called out to Medig for cheering him on. As for Kirlia, its current strength is not qualified to appear here. Medig's eyes froze, strands of electric current wrapped around his body, and the electricity flowed through his whole body. Boom! Under the watchful eyes of everyone, a thunderbolt precisely hit Medig, completely devouring it. Chen Qi and Blaziken stared closely at Medig, who was swallowed by the lightning. Metang didn't respond, didn't yell, didn't show pain, and looked very calm. After an unknown amount of time, the thunder light gradually dissipated, and Medig's silver body glowed slightly. But around Metang, there are still traces of electric currents, constantly flowing. Meadow. That's it. Medig looked up at the thunder cloud, somewhat puzzled why Luolei was so powerful. Chen Qi and Blaziken were silent for a while. Judging from Metatang's performance, it seems that it survived the first thunderstorm more easily than yesterday's Blaziken. Chen Qi quickly asked, "How do you feel?" Medig shook his head, expressing that he had no special feeling. Chen Qi was slightly taken aback, and then said, why don't you continue? Medic nodded without hesitation. It could see clearly yesterday that the boss of Blaziken successfully evolved after receiving 3 lightning strikes. In this way, it only needs to receive 2 more lightning strikes to evolve. Its eyes are shining, and its face is full of anticipation. Medic stayed where he was, and continued to wait for the second lightning bolt to strike. Not long after, the preparation of the second lightning strike ended, and it struck down suddenly. All eyes were on Medic, who was swallowed by lightning. In an instant, there was a flash of thunder, violent electric current flickered, and electric snakes swam one by one. Metang used electromagnetic levitation while absorbing electricity into his body. Time passed by, the thunder light dissipated again, and the outer area returned to calm. Chen Qi looked intently, only to see that the slightest current was still winding around Metang's body, which was the current generated by it through electromagnetic levitation. He could obviously feel that the electrical system energy contained in these currents was much more abundant than before. It seems that Dot has the ability to attack. There was a vague guess in his heart. He thought for a moment, looked up at Medig, and asked, "Do you want to continue?" Metang nodded without hesitation. Only one last time left. Looking at the unscathed Metang, the onlookers secretly swallowed their saliva in shock. Always felt like it was lighter than yesterday's combustion. No way, are you going to challenge the third lightning strike again? This little brother is here to set the record. As the power of this thunderbolt reduced, why don't you try it? Boom, there was a muffled sound of thunder, thunder clouds surged, and a thunderbolt left. In an instant, thunder flashed in front of everyone's eyes. Boom, the thunder devours Medig, and the endless thunder light drowns it and envelops it. Medig quietly suspended in midair, let the violent electric roar, and let Lei Ting slap his body time and time again. The more so, the more its silver body bloomed with Orberg-like luster, and the saffron-colored claws shone brightly. It seems to be undergoing some important metamorphosis. Boom, suddenly, Medig opened his scarlet eyes, electric current flickered all over his body, and his aura suddenly rose. The electric current generated in its body and the thunder fight each other. The former devours the latter continuously. Every time it devours a bit, Metang's aura becomes stronger. Bang, bang, bang. After a long time, the electric current completely swallowed the thunder and wrapped around Medig's body, forming a circular current shield to cover it. This is... Chen Qi looked at the scene in front of him and said in a hoarse voice. At the same time, everyone stared wide-eyed and watched closely. The scene in front of them has already exceeded their cognition. Suddenly, Medig roared, and the current shield began to change shape, turning into thick electric pillars, spreading away in all directions. Boom, the electric column set off a massive shock wave, blowing away the dust and smoke all the way. Chen Qi watched silently, then opened Metang's data panel, and after confirming that it had no electrical attribute, he turned off the panel. Metang's body completely recovered its calm. It lowered its eyes, looked at its own body, and then showed a puzzled expression. What? Why haven't I evolved yet? Chen Qi walked over quickly, and said, "Don't look, it will take a while for you to evolve into Metagross. Well, at least until breaking through to the professional level." Hearing this, Medig was dejected and depressed for a moment. Chen Qi smiled, and then asked, "How is it? How do you feel now?" Hearing this, Metang cheered up and replied, "Nitumtu." At the same time, it is accompanied by rich body movements. Chen Qi, who is proficient in Pokemon, understood the general meaning of Medig. He inhaled electricity into his body, and then felt that his physical fitness had been improved to a certain extent. Chen Qi nodded thoughtfully, and then said, "Let's get out of here first." After a while, Chen Qi returned to Lei Pu's side. "What's the matter with the electric current that wrapped around Medig's body just now?" Lei Jin, who is a trainer specializing in electricity, couldn't wait to ask when he saw Chen Qi. "I need to experiment," Chen Qi replied. Then, he looked at Medig. "Try if you can let the electric current wrap around your body to form a protective shield." Medig responded, and then his eyes were fixed, and countless electric currents began to flow around his body, covering them in an instant, forming an electric current shield. Seeing this, Lei Jin's eyes lit up, and he looked at Metang with extremely hot eyes. "Blaziken, try attacking it." Chen Qi observed it, and then said. Blaziken opened his mouth, controlled his strength, and spit up a flame. The flame hit the current shield, causing a collision, and the energy light waves vented everywhere. After a while, the flame dissipated, but the current shield was still there. It really has a defensive effect. Seeing this, Chen Qi's eyes flickered and he nodded slightly. At the same time, Chen Qi noticed the gazes from the onlookers, and said in a low voice, "Get out of here first." "Okay," Lei Jin quickly replied. Chapter 71. Not long after, Chen Qi and Lei Jin came to a no-man's land. "You try again," Chen Qi said to Medang. "Meadow." Medang stared, once again gathered the electric shield around the whole body. Chen Qi narrowed his eyes, looked at it carefully, and then said, "Try to launch it." "Meadow." Medang yelled softly, and the current shield began to change rapidly, turning into dazzling beams of electricity, spreading in all directions, and the violent current flooded the entire venue with Medang as the center. "Is this discharge?" Looking at this scene, Lei Jin frowned, looking puzzled. This form of attack is very similar to discharge, but its power and destructive power are much higher. Sure enough, as Chen Qi guessed before, Medang can absorb electricity into the body, and then release the current in the body. The first form of expression is the current shield, which has a certain defensive effect. The second form of representation is discharge, where lightning covers the entire field and belongs to the category of beat-up strike skills. Numerous thoughts surged in his mind like a storm, and immediately he looked at Medang and said, "Can you use again?" Medang tried it, then shook his head. Chen Qi nodded slightly, and said to Medang, "Let me know when you can do it." "Meadow." Metang nodded. After waiting on the spot for about an hour, Medang used the current shield and discharge again, but the power was not weakened. 1 hour cooldown. That is to say, in a battle, this trick can only be used once. Well, yes, this trick is a bit perverted. If it can be used repeatedly in a short period of time, it will be too bullying. Chen Qi thought to himself. And the most important point, since these powers are stored in Medang, how long can they last? If the power in the body disappears, how should I charge? Is ordinary electricity okay? Can it be expressed in other forms? With so many thoughts in his mind, Chen Qi held back one question after another, and turned to look at Lei Jin. "Do we have anything else to do?" Lei Jin crossed his arms and laughed loudly. "Of course I'm looking for other Pokemon to fight with. Through the battle, stabilize the power that has just been absorbed, and then you can leave Electric Valley and come back next year." "Okay." Chen Qi nodded slightly. Today's Medang really needs a battle to accurately test its current combat power. So, Chen Qi and Lei Jin started looking for wild Pokemon all the way. Dark clouds shrouded soaring in the sky, giving people a heavy and depressing atmosphere, and a thunderbolt flashed across the skyline from time to time. Finding wild Pokemon is also very particular. You can't find Pokemon with the 3 abilities of Power Storage, Lightning Rod, and Electric Engine. Otherwise, not only will it be unable to attack it, but it will become its charged treasure. After more than an hour, Medang finds his own rival, a Magneton. Magneton is a Pokemon born of 3 Magnemites connected together by magnetic force, which emits strong magnetic force and high voltage. Pokemon. Magneton, Electric, Steel. Ability. Magnetic Force. Qualification. Gym. Level. LV36 Elite. Its ability is Magnetic Power, which makes it impossible for Steel Pokemon to escape from the battle. Medang laughed at this. It is not sure who will escape at that time. The battle started quickly. With Magneton's classic move, a flickering electric current surged all over his body, and in an instant it gathered into a thick electric column, and suddenly slashed towards Medang. Current shield. Seeing this, Chen Qi ordered directly. "Meadow." Medang responded quickly, and suddenly there were wisps of electric current all over his body, which suddenly formed a circular protective cover around his whole body, enveloping it. Thunderbolt hit the current shield, making a crackling screech sound, but then disappeared without a trace like a mud cow entering the sea. "Meadow." Suddenly, Medang let out an excited growl, and he felt that the electricity in his body seemed to grow stronger. Could it be that the current shield can also absorb rival's power and use it for itself? Looking at this scene, Chen Qi had a vague guess in his heart. Thoughts flashed. Chen Qi fixed his eyes and said, "Discharge." Discharge, which is to convert the current shield into an attack form. With a soft call from Medang, the electric current shield changes accordingly, turning into thick electric beams, venting to all directions, and endless thunder flashes violently, like 1,000 birds singing together. Such a large-scale thunder shock was unavoidable, and Magneton was hit by the electric column, making crackling sounds all over his body. After a long while, it shook its body and continued to float in midair, but its body was scorched black. It was obvious that the discharge had caused considerable damage. Well, it's certainly not realistic to kill Magneton in one hit. Magneton has twice the resistance to electric skills, and it is always high. Mid-air, Magneton stared at Medic on the opposite side. His abrupt body burst into dazzling light, and then the light gathered in a small spot and turned into a gorgeous beam of light. Flash cannon. Apparently, Magneton realized that electricity-type skills could not cause effective damage to Medic, and turned to steel-type skills. Boom! Flash cannon shot out with a bang, blowing away dust and smoke all the way, charging towards Medic with astonishing momentum. Light screen, Chen Qi said calmly. A dazzling glass light screen suddenly rose in front of Medic, weakening the power of Flash cannon by half. Immediately afterwards, Flash cannon continued to hit Medic. Metang stared coldly, and folded his arms to protect his chest. Boom! Flash cannon devoured it, and a dazzling light shone in front of his eyes. After a while, the light faded, and Medic slowly lowered his arms, leaving only shallow marks on his body. Psychic, Chen Qi said. Medic's eyes were sharp, purple light glowed in its eyes, and super energy fluctuations emerged, and the spiritual confusion shot out invisible, covering Magneton in an instant, turning into purple light to surround it. Immediately afterwards, the mental confusion controlled Magneton, raised it high, and smashed it to the ground. Boom! With the sound of collisions ringing in his ears, Magneton collapsed to the ground, unable to fight. Well, Psychic has also improved a lot. Chen Qi nodded in satisfaction. This trip to Electric Valley has gained a lot. Combuskin refines his body and evolves into Blaziken, greatly improving his combat power. Medic absorbs magnetic waves and electricity, not only masters brand new electric moves, but also improves Psychic, and his combat power also soars. That afternoon, Chen Qi and Lei Jin returned to Electric Town. As soon as he walked into the town, Chen Qi keenly noticed that many trainers' eyes were on him along the way. It should be something that happened in the thunderstorm area. Lei Jin reminded softly beside him. Also, it won't take long for this kind of news to spread throughout the town. Suddenly, a middle-aged man in a suit and leather shoes walked quickly in front of Chen Qi, showing a professional smile, and said in a loud voice, "Hi, I'm sorry to waste your time. I am a staff member of the Our Department of Hayota Group. Are you a college student? If yes, please accept the business card of our group. This business card can directly let you enter our group for internship." While talking, the middle-aged man handed over a business card. Lei Jin widened his eyes, and his voice was buzzing like Hong Zhang Dalu. "Okay, we are students of Imperial Capital University." Hearing this, the middle-aged man immediately lowered his head, put his business card back in his pocket, and said repeatedly, "Sorry for the trouble." Afterwards, the middle-aged man left quickly. Recruiters from these companies are really everywhere, Lei Jin explained. They searched for excellent seedlings all over the world, took out olive branches, and tried to attract them into their own companies. Hayota Group, which seems to be one of the top 500 domestic companies, is not very famous. In fact, the top 500 companies are already considered behemoths in China. They may not be well known to ordinary people, but they are definitely big companies and groups in the industry. But they are students of Imperial University, and they are the pride of heaven among their peers, so what about the top 500 companies? The name of our school is quite famous, seniors normally look down on this kind of company. Lei Jin continued. Chen Qi suddenly nodded. Afterwards, Lei Jin grinned. With your strength, it is estimated that by the end of the freshman exchange competition there will be countless business organizations throwing olive branches at you, and you need to think carefully at that time. Okay, Chen Qi replied with a nod. Of course, great graduates won't join corporate organizations, they'll just make a name for themselves. As long as the outstanding graduates have only one goal from the beginning to the end. Lei Jin stared at Chen Qi, and said slowly, "Become a powerful trainer. Become an elite champion." Not long after, the two came to the Pokemon Association, and I arrived at Ming. Hi, you're finally here. When Dang Ming saw Chen Qi, his eyes lit up and he immediately went up to meet him. Meeting Chen Qi's slightly puzzled gaze, Dang Ming said, "The video of your combustion receiving 3 lightning strikes in a row has spread throughout the entire electrical town." Hearing this, the corners of Chen Qi's mouth twitched, deeply comprehending the speed of information dissemination in the internet society. If the news is hot enough, it will spread throughout Dongwang within half a day. "Are you here to return the insulation suit?" Then Dang Ming asked. "Yes." Chen Qi nodded. Immediately afterwards, the two returned the insulating suit to Dang Ming and hurriedly left the Pokemon Association. Because it was afternoon, the two went directly to the airport by car and embarked on the journey back to the imperial capital. On September 20th, the weather was fine. Day 3 back from Electric Valley. Chen Qi had just finished class when the phone in his pocket started to vibrate crazily. It was Bai Yu's call. "Aren't you in class?" Bai Ming's voice rang in his ears through the phone. "Just finished class," Chen Qi replied. "There is something I need to tell you. If you have time, come to the school team room now. I need to tell you in person," Bai Ming said. Chen Qi was slightly taken aback, then nodded, "Come right over." After hanging up the phone and saying goodbye to Tang Qi, Chen Qi went directly to the school team room. Not long after, Chen Qi came to the school team room, and Bai Yu was already waiting inside. "Brother, do you remember the last time we went to the suburbs and met the disciples of the Xuanxin dojo?" Bai Yu said straight to the point. "Remember." Chen Qi was very impressed with them. Bai Yu nodded, and then said, "Just now, the elder brother of Xuanxin Taoist contacted me and invited you to visit and study in Xuanxin Taoist." "Brother," Chen Qi wondered, "invite me?" Bai Yu said with a smile, "This elder brother is the strongest of the younger generation in the Xuanxin dojo. At the same time, he is the close disciple of Master Xuanmu, a professional trainer, and a psychic with extraordinary talent. He has a good reputation. Chen Qi has heard of Master Xuanmu, the head of Xuanxin dojo, a master trainer. Although it is the elder brother's invitation to you, it must be Master Xuanmu's will." Afterwards, Bai Yu paused for a while, and then said again, "Because I was also invited to visit and study in the Xuanxin dojo when I was a freshman. It's just that I don't have much interest in psychic, and psychic's talent is low, so I just visited it." "But you are different." Bai Ming stared at Chen Qi and said seriously, "You are a true psychic. After arriving at the Xuanxin dojo, Master Xuanmu will definitely teach you the Xuanxin calm mind method and some psychic skills." "Why?" Chen Qi frowned and asked aloud. "There are no good things for no reason in this world." When Bai Yu heard this, she nodded in satisfaction, and then chuckled, "Because of your grandpa. As the only elite of the superpower system in China, we can't imagine his rights. But there is no doubt about one thing." Bai Yu shook his index finger and said with a smile, "If Grandpa no longer insists on neutrality, but accepts the favor of Xuanxin Taoist instead, then the Xuanxin dojo will leap to become the largest psychic dojo in the country, surpassing the Tianxin dojo in the south." Chen Qi nodded thoughtfully, and then asked, "Sister, I have 2 questions." "You say." "First, if I accept the calm mind method taught by Master Xuanmu, does it mean that Grandpa accepts the offer from the Xuanxin dojo? Second, we are a psychic family after all, don't we have our own calm mind method?" The first question is crucial, and the second question has long been doubted. Hearing these 2 questions, Bai Yu was stunned for a while. After thinking about it carefully, she shook her head. "Why don't you just ask your dad directly?" Hearing this, Chen Qi thought for a moment, then took out his mobile phone and dialed Father Chen's number. Doduo beep. The phone was connected quickly. "Hello, what's the matter?" Father Chen's voice rang in their ears through the phone. Chen Qi first told about Xuanxin dojo's invitation to him, and then told Father Chen his 2 questions. After finishing the sentence, Father Chen's hearty laughter sounded from the other end of the phone. "It's very good that you can consider these 2 issues." Immediately, Father Chen spoke for a moment before replying, "The first question. On this occasion, you cannot represent your grandfather, you can only represent an individual. If Master Xuanmu taught you the calm mind method, it would only represent a personal favor to you, not to your grandfather. With your grandfather's current status, he cannot be represented by anyone. My suggestion is to accept the invitation. The calm mind method has some value, but it is not a big favor." Father Chen paused, and then laughed loudly. When you go to the south in the future, there is a high probability that the Tianxin dojo will show kindness to you, and it will be next. After all, that's how your grandfather came here. Showing kindness does not mean wooing, it just means that I don't want to be hostile to you, you have to remember this. Chen Qi nodded silently when he heard these words. As for the second question, it's even simpler. We are not a family that has been passed down for hundreds of years. Our rise stems from your grandfather. He was just an ordinary psychic when he was young, but because of his extraordinary talent and hard work, he became a generation of elite. He alone could not have created a new calm mind method in a mere few decades. You know, after the initial formulation of the calm mind method of Xuanxin Taoist and Tianxin Taoist, after several years of continuous revision and improvement, it has what it is today. Besides, your grandfather has already mastered the two calm mind methods, but he couldn't pass them on to us directly. Well, by the way, your grandfather also said that he is the leader of our family, and he only played a pioneering role, and the real inheritance depends on the younger generations. If the juniors are good, they will naturally create our own calm mind method. If the younger generation is incompetent, and the family's decline is only a few decades away, asking for the calm mind method will only add to the disaster. After listening to these words in silence, Chen Qi and Bai Yu seemed to feel Chen Wei's arrogance and freedom from it. Do you have any questions? Father Chen's voice sounded again. Chen Qi shook his head and said, no more. Well, that's good. Father Chen was about to hang up the phone when he suddenly remembered something and said quickly, have you participated in the freshman exchange competition? Participated. Okay, then your mother and I are looking forward to your performance. Father Chen hung up the phone after saying this. Bai Yu looked at Chen Qi, and sighed, Grandpa is so amazing, he founded a family by himself. Chen Qi nodded deeply, yes. So, do you want to accept the invitation from Xuanxin Dojo? Bai Yu asked. Chen Qi no longer hesitated, nodded and said, accept. Then I'll tell him, Bai Ming said. Afterwards, Bai Yu called back the elder brother of Xuanxin Dojo and told him that Chen Qi had agreed to the invitation. Then, Bai Yu passed the senior brother's contact information to Chen Qi. Chen Qi added, and the friend request was quickly accepted there. Hi, I'm Shen Chen, a disciple of Xuanxin Dojo. Please arrive at the school gate at 9:30 tomorrow morning, and you, will pick you up in person. I don't know if this time is good. Chen Qi thought for a while, and then answered that there was no question. After talking with Bai Yu for a while, Chen Qi returned to the dormitory. Just sitting on the chair, Chen Qi saw the message from Chu Yuning. Are you there? Exist. Chen Qi replied, I have something to trouble you with. Do you have a library card? Before Chen Qi could reply, her next message appeared in the chat box soon. That's right, recently I'm learning the theoretical knowledge about Pokemon genes and evolution by myself, but there's no relevant knowledge in the textbooks, and there are very few books in the library that record this. 1. As we all know, the scale of the school library and the quality of the books in it are directly related to the quality of the school. The collection of books in Kunlun University is naturally better than God's. Seeing this news, Chen Qi was slightly taken aback. Knowledge related to Pokemon genes and evolution. I remember that this thing does not belong to the current stage of knowledge. Amazing. With a slight sigh in his heart, Chen Qi tapped the screen to send a message. Yes, when do you want it? Is it okay now? I'll come to your school. No problem, I'll wait for you at the library gate. Sorry to bother you. Chen Qi put the phone back in his pocket, took out his borrowing card from the cabinet, and prepared to leave the dormitory. Seeing this, Tang Qi, who was playing a game, raised his head and asked casually, Brother Chen Qi, you just came back, why did you go out again? Chen Qi replied, a friend from another school asked me to borrow a library card. Friends from other schools, Tang Qi muttered, his eyes lit up immediately, and he quickly asked, male or female? Female, Chen Qi said flatly. Female. Tang Qi's eyes flickered slightly, and he said, I remember that you usually go to the library to search for information. Will this not delay your class? Chen Qi shook his head. It's okay, she shouldn't need it a few times. Hearing this, Tang Qi said solemnly, although it won't be used a few times, there is a limit on the number of books that can be borrowed, and you can borrow up to 5 books at a time. Come, Take my library card, I don't need it anyway. As soon as the voice finished speaking, Tang Chi put down his phone, fumbled for a borrowing card from the cabinet, and handed it to Chen Chi. Chen Chi just hesitated for a moment, then took the borrowing card and said, "Thank you." "Hey, thank you for this little thing, go quickly, go quickly." Tang Chi pushed Chen Chi out of the dormitory. Seeing Chen Chi's figure drifting away, Tang Chi shook his head and sighed in a low voice, "I really enjoy helping others." When Chen Chi arrived at the library, Chu Yuning was already standing quietly at the door. Although the clothes and pants she was wearing were not conspicuous, but the graceful curve of the waist was very eye-catching and attracted a lot of attention. When Chen Chi stood in front of her, Chu Yuning was swallowed up by the enveloping huge black shadow, and Chu Yuzhong, who kept lowering his eyes and staring at the ground, knew Chen Miao's arrival. "It's so early?" Chen Chi asked aloud. Chu Yuning raised her head, met Chen Chi's clear eyes, and said in a low voice, "It's not very far." Chen Chi smiled, took out his borrowing card from his pocket, and handed it to her. "Give." Chu Yuning took it, and then said, "I will return it to you tomorrow." Chen Chi smiled and shook his hands, and replied, "It's okay, you can use it anyway, my roommate gave me his." "He's one of those people who doesn't step into the library once a semester," Chen Chi added. "Oh." Chu Yuning nodded like a kitten, and then said, "Thank you." Chen Chi grinned. "Okay, I don't like formalities, Solician is better. Let's go, I just want to go in." This is true, Chen Chi has recently been researching how to make a gravity practice room. The principle of this thing is very complicated, and it is necessary to consult various materials and try again and again. Since I have a good psychic, I naturally want to use this psychic to the extreme. Chen Chi and Chu Yuning entered the library, found the books they were reading, and found a place to sit down. The library is very quiet, everyone is immersed in the world of books, only the rustling sound of flipping books can be heard from time to time. Such an environment is most suitable for careful reading. So no one wants to take the book back to the bedroom unless it is absolutely necessary. The learning environment in the dormitory knows everything. The two didn't talk, let alone discuss in a low voice, they read their books quietly. After an unknown amount of time, Chen Chi raised his head to rest his eyes, and saw that Chu Yuning was still immersed in the world of the book. She frowned cutely for a while. After a while, he showed a sudden expression, and the expression on his face was much richer than usual. Chen Chi smiled, and after resting for a while, lowered his head again. 3 hours later, Chen Chi and Chu Yuning walked out of the library side by side. "How is it? Did you gain anything today?" Chen Chi asked proactively. Chu Yuning nodded slightly, with a strange brilliance in her eyes, she replied, "The harvest is great." Immediately afterwards, she frowned slightly and said in a low voice, "But there are many theories that I don't understand." Hearing this, Chen Chi smiled loudly and said, "Isn't this very normal?" Seeing Chu Yuning's slightly puzzled gaze, Chen Chi explained, "We are all freshmen who have just entered college, and there must be many things we don't understand. But learning is such a process, from nothing to something, from superficial to profound, from ignorance to knowledge. Come on, I'm optimistic about you, future Pokemon scholar." Chen Chi laughed. Chu Yuning nodded heavily, her dark eyes glowed slightly. "Okay, let's go back quickly." Chen Chi waved to Chu Yuning, ready to turn and leave. "Thank you," Chu Yuning said again. Unexpectedly, Chen Chi turned around abruptly, stared down at Chu Yuning's exquisite face, and said seriously, "Student Chu Yuning, it would be polite to say thank you. Between friends, there is no need for so many formalities." The next day, at 9:30 in the morning, Chen Chi arrived at the school gate on time. A limousine was parked on the side of the parking line, and a man with a jade figure and a white robe stepped out of it, who seemed to be in his 20s. "Young Master Chen, I'm Shen Chen, I've been waiting for a long time." Shen Chen quickly walked up to Chen Chi, and smiled gently. "A title I haven't heard in a long time." From this address, Chen Chi more or less knew the attitude of Xuanxin Dojo towards him. "Please get in the car." Shen Chen stretched out his hand. Chen Chi followed behind Shen Chen and sat in the back row. The car moved slowly towards the Xuanxin Dojo. "Sister Bai, you must have introduced me to you." Suddenly, Shen Chen took the initiative to speak. I am a disciple of Xuanxin Dojo, and at the same time a big brother of this generation. At the master's will, I specially invite Chen Xiao to come to my Xuanxin Dojo to visit and study. After saying these words, Shen Chen turned his head to look at Chen Qi, with deep black eyes, and asked, I felt the familiar fluctuations in young Master Chen, so young Master Chen must be a psychic, right? Although it was a question sentence, Shen Chen's tone was extremely firm. That's right, Chen Qi replied truthfully. Seeing Chen Qi admit it, Shen Chen showed a bright smile on his face, and said, then you will definitely like Zan Xindao Yang. After talking for a while, Shen Chen suddenly said, my younger sister is in the same class as young Master Chen, you should have heard of her name. Meeting Chen Qi's curious gaze, he said, Shen Weiyui. It's right, everything is right. Shen Weiyui, a super specialized trainer and a psychic, has a cold personality and has always been a loner. Well, Chen Qi already knew that she was a disciple of Xuanxin Dojo, but he didn't expect that she was Shen Chen's own sister. It's just that the personalities of the two brothers and sisters are a bit different. Although it's just their first contact, Shen Chen is obviously like a gentle gentleman, while Shen Weiyui is like an iceberg that won't melt for thousands of years. It seems that young Master Chen has heard of little sister. Seeing Chen Qi's reaction, Shen Chen smiled. Immediately, he said, little sister is indifferent by nature and has few friends. After she went to university, she never told her family about the university. Speaking of this, Shen Chen looked up at Chen Qi, and said with a serious expression, young Master Chen and younger sister are students at the same school, please take care of young Master Chen, I will definitely reward you dearly. You're welcome. Chen Qi nodded lightly. Unknowingly, the car drove into the suburbs. Chen Qi had checked relevant information on the internet, and the Xuanxin Taoist temple was located in a small town on the outskirts of the imperial capital. Well, to be precise, this small town is the base of Xuanxin Dojo. There are thousands of disciples in the Xuanxin Taoist temple, and most of them live here for a long time. After a long time, a small town with complete infrastructure will naturally form. Not long after, the car stopped in front of a classical building, different from ordinary reinforced concrete buildings. This building is made of pure wood. The wooden walls are full of chaotic conversions and some crooked texts, revealing a strangeness in the mystery. Welcome to Xuanxin Dojo. Shen Chen looked up at the building in front of him, with a big smile on his face. Let's go, young Master Chen. Then, Shen Chen said. Chen Qi nodded and followed Shen Chen into the Xuanxin Dojo. Along the way, men and women in white robes appeared in front of them, and they cast curious glances at Chen Qi. All the disciples in my Xuanxin Dojo wear white robes no matter how high or low they are. Shen Chen took the initiative to explain. Afterwards, the two passed by one room after another. The scene in front of me was somewhat similar to Father Chen's ashram. The disciples of the ashram were sitting cross-legged in their respective areas, closing their eyes and concentrating. And beside them, almost all have one or more super-power Pokemon. Dojo disciples are divided into two types, one is direct disciples, and I belong to this kind. The direct disciples stay in the dojo all day long, we don't go to school, we don't take part in work, we have long been bound to the dojo. The second type is ordinary disciples. They spend money to come to the dojo to study for a period of time, and they have a pure transaction relationship with the dojo. My younger sister belongs to the second type, but her psychic talent is not bad, and she may become a personal disciple in the future. After hearing these words, Chen Qi suddenly nodded. Come on, I'll show you my master first. After Shen Chen said this, he led Chen Qi all the way forward to the front room. Master, young Master Chen is here. Shen Chen gently knocked on the door. Please come in. A calm voice came from inside. Shen Chen gently pushed open the door, and at the same time stretched out his hand to Chen Qi, please come in. Chen Qi stepped into the room, and the scene inside came into view. This room is not big, there is a screen on the left to block the view, and the right side is a closed wooden window, and directly opposite, an old man with difficulty is sitting cross-legged on a futon. Sensing the movement of Chen Qi coming in, the old man opened his eyes were deep, his mouth moved, and he said, young Master Chen, long time no see. Master Xuanmu. Chen Qi greeted politely. The seemingly unremarkable old man in front of him is Master Xuanmu, the leader of the domestic psychic school, with a distinguished status. Anyone who can be honored as a certain master must be a master trainer. And every master trainer is a great achiever in their respective fields, has a lofty status in society. Except for the elite champions, they are the most powerful and most prestigious trainers. This kind of person calls him Little Master Chen, naturally because Chen Qi stands behind a real elite. Zhan Mu calmly nodded, stood up from the futon, stared at Chen Qi as if he had experienced the vicissitudes of life, and after a while, he said slowly, "Your grandfather and I used to be old acquaintances." Chen Qi was taken aback for a moment, feeling that this sentence seemed familiar. Back then when he came to Xuanxin Dojo to study, he had thousands of disciples, but I had the best relationship with him, eating and lodging together. Unexpectedly, things are impermanent, he became an elite, and I have to spend my whole life in this small Xuanxin Dojo. Inviting you this time has nothing to do with him. Master Xuanmu stroked his beard and said slowly, "It's irrelevant because I don't need to show favor to him through you. It's related to the fact that there was a long friendship, and the young Master Chen is also a psychic, so he has a heart to support." Hearing this, Chen Qi was slightly shocked, secretly thinking that what Drew said was true to Dad Chen. 2 years ago, I also invited your cousin to come here. It's a pity that she didn't have much interest in psychic, and she just visited in a hurry. Low EQ, no psychic talent. High EQ, not much interest in psychic. Suddenly, Master Xuanmu stared at Chen Qi closely, and said in a deep voice, "I can feel the surge of psychic in your body." The surge surprised me. Hearing this, Shen Chen's pupils shrank. "Would you like to stay in Xuanxin Dojo to study for a while, and learn the calm mind method and some psychic skills?" At this time, Chen Qi suddenly asked a question. "Has my father ever learned the calm mind method from you?" "I have learned." Master Xuanmu smiled slightly. Hearing Master Xuanmu's explanation, Chen Qi showed a smile on his face, nodded and said, "Okay, I will learn from Master, but I may not be able to stay here for a long time. I still have to go to school." Master Xuanmu thought for a moment, and then said, "Then just come here every weekend." "No problem." This time, Chen Qi echoed back. According to Master Xuanmu's answer just now and Dad Chen's explanation yesterday, Chen Qi completely understood the purpose of Bai Xuanxin Taoist invitation for him to come, to invest. Yes, exactly paragraphs. Xuanxin Dojo will invite some talented psychic people to teach calm mind method and psychic skills, which is exactly the investment. If the psychic investors who invest in the future achieve something, they will naturally give feedback. As Chen Wei's descendant, Chen Qi is naturally the best seedling. There were many thoughts in my mind for a while. At this time Master Xuanmu stroked his beard and asked, "What do you know about calm mind?" Chen Qi heard the words, thought for a moment quietly, and then replied, "Through meditation, you can exercise your spiritual power." Master Xuanmu didn't comment, and said lightly, "This is the Pokemon scholar's explanation of calm mind moves." Afterwards, he nodded slightly, and said, "The focus is on the first 4 words, calm down and concentrate. We psychic people want to achieve calm mind, and we also need to achieve these 4 words. In the process of meditation, we can perceive the spiritual energy hidden in the mind. After perception, it is mining and control." Speaking of this, Master Xuanmu put his hands behind his back and said slowly, "There are various ways of calm mind, and there are many names. There are as many schools of calm mind as there are. The calm mind method in our Xuanxin Dojo focuses on the centralized calm mind. The so-called concentrated calm mind is to focus all attention on one point during the calm mind process. This point can be an object, shape, sound, meaningless word, phrase or breath." Immediately afterwards, Master Xuanmu used an apt metaphor. "Well, imagine that you are a bird, soaring high, soaring among the clouds, shuttling among the mountains, overlooking the earth. If you can do this, then you have mastered the calm mind method. After you master the calm mind method, you can teach it to your Pokemon, which can also exercise their spiritual strength and indirectly improve psychic." Master Xuanmu said lightly, "It's just that compared to humans, it's harder for Pokemon to concentrate and focus more on talent." Chen Qi nodded in agreement. Which one is easier to focus on, Metatang or Kirlia? The answer is obvious. "Young Master Chen, this is the calm mind room. Someone will deliver the food later." If you need anything, you can call someone outside. Shen Chen brought Chen Qi to a calm mind room. After Master Xuanmu told him the basic content of the calm mind method, Chen Qi couldn't wait to try it. The first step, of course, is to meditate. The environment of the calm mind room is very dark, and the windows are closed, as if people are in the dark and not distracted by external objects. Young Master Chen, let's start. After Shen Chen finished speaking, he closed the door of the calm mind room. Chen Qi crossed his legs on the futon, closed his eyes, and tried to meditate. At the very beginning, messy thoughts always flashed through his mind: curiosity about old man Chen Wei's past, the grievances and hatreds between Xuanxin Dojo and Tianxin Dojo, and the training goals for the next stage, etc. After thinking like this for a while, he took a deep breath, threw away these complicated thoughts, and instead imagined himself as a flying bird, jumping over the mountains and flying over the plains. Unknowingly, he was immersed in the weaving world. His mood gradually calmed down, and he didn't feel the passage of time at all. After an unknown amount of time, Chen Qi opened his eyes. The surroundings were still dark, and the room was silent. Suddenly, he felt a flood of hunger, as if he hadn't eaten for several days. Chen Qi took out his mobile phone and found himself in calm mind for 4 hours. Time flies so fast, Chen Qi muttered in a low voice. He didn't feel the rapid passage of time at all. Just like rest, several hours passed in the blink of an eye. Chen Qi pushed open the door, and saw Zan Mu Dada and Shen Chen standing at the door. After seeing Chen Qi, Master Xuanmu stroked his beard and sighed. Very good, you have successfully completed the meditation. And the time is as long as 4 hours, which is enough to prove your talent. For modern people, it is difficult to concentrate carefully. Modern people are exposed to various complicated information every day, and modern people are generally more impetuous, so it is very difficult for them to concentrate. How do you feel now? Master Xuanmu asked. Chen Qi replied without thinking, very hungry. Master Xuanmu nodded with a smile. It's a good thing to be hungry. It shows that you have really managed to concentrate, and in the process your spiritual power was consumed, which led to the feeling of hunger. Shen Chen, take young Master Chen to dinner. Yes, Shen Chen nodded. After a while, Chen Guan chocolate rice. Young Master Chen, you have now achieved the first step of meditation and concentration, and the next step is the second step, training the speed of meditation and concentration. No matter what environment you are in, you can concentrate without being disturbed by external objects. Master Xuanmu wrote. After this step, you can try to tap the spiritual power in your body. In the process, your psychic strength and perception will be enhanced, indirectly increasing your psychic. In addition, 2 hours of calm mind is equivalent to 8 hours of rest. Well, it is recommended that all workers learn the calm mind method. After you complete these 3 steps, you can teach the calm mind method to your Pokemon. But there is one thing that young Master Chen needs to pay attention to. Master Xuanmu stared at Chen Qi with deep eyes. Which point, Qi said, without our permission, please do not teach Solician the Xuanxin calm mind method to others. Master Xuanmu said solemnly. The Xuanxin calm mind method is the inheritance method of Xuanxin Dojo, and it is only passed on to those who are destined. Chen Qi nodded solemnly. Okay, BCDI as night falls. This time, Shen Chen led Chen Qi into a brightly lit room, which was close to the street, and there were some small noises outside from time to time. In the dead of night, these small sounds will be infinitely amplified in your senses, disturbing your mood to a large extent. What Chen Qi has to do is to successfully meditate in this environment. I've seen reports that Master Xuanmu can still calm down easily even if he is in a busy city, and let the outside world be noisy and boiling, and I am self-purified. With such a realm, I don't know when I can achieve it. Chen Qi thought to himself, then sat cross-legged on the futon, closed his eyes, and tried to concentrate. This time it was indeed much more difficult. His attention was always unconsciously shifted to the street outside the window, and a slight sound disturbed his mind again and again. After about half an hour, Chen Qi finally calmed down and began to fantasize that he was a flying bird. Time passed gradually, and after more than 2 hours, Chen Qi opened his eyes. The second step is almost complete. Only one last step left. Well, I didn't feel hungry this time, but I felt refreshed, like I slept for 10 hours at a stretch. Waking up refreshed is the highest evaluation of sleep quality. Of course, calm mind cannot replace rest, rest must be available. Only in some special cases, you can use calm mind to restore your spirit. Chen Qi thought to himself. For example, when you are hunted down for 3 days and 3 nights, you can calm mind for 5 minutes, which is equivalent to replenishing energy for 2 hours. Thoughts flashed. Chen Qi got up and opened the door, and saw Shen Chen standing at the door impressively. Young Master Chen, it seems that you have succeeded. Shen Chen smiled gently. Afterwards, Shen Chen continued. Young Master Chen, Master has ordered you to rest in the guest room tonight. Wait until tomorrow to try tapping psychic energy, then try calm mind on your Pokemon. With all that done, you can go back to school and come back next week. Okay. Chen Qi nodded slightly. After the conversation was over, Shen Chen took Dongguan to a guest room. The reason why meditation is the first step is because it can help humans and Pokemon perceive the spiritual power hidden in the body. The next step is to tap this hidden spiritual power, use it and improve it. When all of this is done, it's a full calm mind cycle. With a complete thought, Chen Qi saw that it was still early, and released the 3 Pokemon. You guys try to concentrate. Chen Qi told them the method of meditation. Meadow. Metang's eyes lit up, and he landed on the ground, impatiently trying to meditate. Blaziken nodded slightly, sat cross-legged on the ground, and slowly closed his eyes. Kirlia opened her eyes and thought for a while. First she looked at Medig who was moving from time to time, then she looked at the quiet Blaziken, and closed her eyes. Under Chen Qi's observation, Medig moved from time to time, obviously not entering the calm mind contest condition at all. Blaziken frowned for a while, and relaxed for a while. It seems that he did not enter the calm mind contest condition. Only Kirlia sat cross-legged on the ground silently, with her eyes closed and her expression relaxed. After more than 10 minutes, Medig took the lead in announcing the failure of the attempt. Then after another 10 minutes, Blaziken failed. Only Kirlia has been in the calm mind contest condition and never woke up. It is as expected. Blaziken and Metang are unable to master the calm mind move. This Chen Qi has known for a long time. He just wants to try whether the 2 of them can calm down. Obviously, they cannot. The race of Pokemon determines too much. Chen Qi sighed softly. Medig's whole body is made of magnets, and it's really unreasonable to want him to concentrate on it. After Kirlia woke up and confirmed that her contest condition was intact, Chen Qi slowly fell asleep. Early the next morning, Chen Qi, led by Shen Chen, went to the calm mind room and began to try the 3rd step. Young Master Chen, when you enter the contest condition of meditation, you can find active energy particles one after another in your body. They exist invisible, but you can feel them. Use your mind to approach them, to touch them. This is the last step. Shen Chen said slowly. Chen Qi nodded, expressing his understanding. Then, he entered the calm mind room. This time, he quickly entered the contest condition of meditation, and then he really noticed energy particles one after another in his body. In Shen Chen's words, this is the expression of spiritual power. Immediately, he began to try to get close to these energy particles. This very process is very long, and even will continue to fail. Simply Chen Qi endured his temper, kept trying, and finally got close to an energy particle. After doing this, Chen Qi started to touch it. Time passed slowly. After an unknown amount of time, he opened his eyes. Glancing at the time, an hour has passed. This time, he obviously felt that his psychic had grown a bit stronger, which was a normal phenomenon. Master Xuanmu said that the further you get to the later stage, the weaker the effect of the calm mind method on psychic improvement will be. At that time, it will need to accumulate over time. After successfully promoting psychic, Chen Qi released Kirlia and coached her to perform calm mind. But Kirlia is a super-type Pokemon after all, and she has excellent aptitude, so she did the last 2 steps with ease. At noon, Chen Qi opened the door and saw Shen Chen again as expected. It seems that you have a good harvest. Glancing at Chen Qi, Shen Chen laughed out loud. Chen Qi nodded and said, the harvest is not bad. Shen Chen nodded and said, since you have to go to class tomorrow, we won't keep you. Wait until Saturday next week, the old time, waiting for you at the hidden place. Chen Qi declined, I won't bother you next time, I'll do it myself. Shen Chen smiled heartily. It's okay, young Master Chen, it would be troublesome for you to come by car. Seeing that Chen Chen was so persistent, Chen Qi no longer refused. Afterwards, Chen Qi bid farewell to Master Xuanmu and was sent back to Imperial University by Shen Chen. On October 1st, Friday, the weather was fine. Brother Chen Qi, is today the selection day for freshman exchange contestants? Early in the morning, seeing Chen Qi washing up, Tang Qi poked his head out of the bed and asked. Chen Qi wiped his face, then nodded, yes, it's today. Hearing this, Tang Qi shook his head and said, it's a pity, we ordinary students can't watch it. Due to confidentiality regulations, ordinary students cannot watch the selection of the exchange apartment for freshmen. Of course, this is true of every school. Brother Chen Qi, calm down, don't cause too much psychological shadow on other players. Tang Qi said immediately. Chen Qi raised his eyebrows and asked back, am I so scary? Tang Qi held his chin with one hand, thought for a moment, then nodded, yes. When you appeared in front of me on a go-go when you were in the Pingxi secret realm, I knew you were not an easy person. Sure enough, it's not as I expected. Tang Qi smirked. Seeing that Chen Qi didn't answer, Tang Qi leaned out again and asked, by the way, brother Chen Qi, how are you and that girl going? Which girl? Chen Qi was taken aback. Tang Qi winked and said, the library. Oh, Chen Qi nodded suddenly, and then replied, everything is going well, she is a qualified friend. Book friend. Tang Qi's expression froze. Chen Qi nodded and said, it's friends who read books together. Okay, I'll go first. After finishing speaking, Chen Qi waved to Tang Qi and left the dormitory. Soon, Chen Qi came to the school team room. Different from the past, today's school team room is densely packed with people, and all the school team members gathered here today. Under the expectation of everyone, Chu Wai slowly walked to the front, and said loudly, everyone, I don't need to say more about what day it is today. He looked around and said loudly, it has been 1.5 months since the field military training, and during this time, the strength of the Big Kaori members has improved rapidly. Today, we will select 12 contestants here to participate in the freshman exchange competition, and go out for the school. After saying this, Chu Wai paused for a moment, and then said loudly, our school team now has a total of 30 Kaori members, of which 12 choose to participate in team competitions, and choose to participate in individual competitions. Individual battles are indeed more popular than team battles. Hearing this, Chen Qi sighed slightly. Next, let me talk about the competition format of this selection. Group battle. Individual battles use the arena system. Arena system. Hearing this sentence, the Big Kaori member showed a puzzled expression, only the old members looked like watching the fun. Seeing this, Chu Wai smiled slightly, and explained, the so-called arena system means that there will be a total of 6 arenas, corresponding to 6 contestants. 2-2 battles, the winner stays and becomes the best. The rest can challenge the ring master, and then repeat the rules just now, the winner stays as the ring master. The challenge time lasts a total of 3 hours, and there is an energy cube next to it to restore physical strength. There is plenty of time, and I hope everyone will take it seriously. After the challenge fails, can I still challenge others? At this time, Lu Bin stood up and asked aloud. Of course, within these 3 hours, you have unlimited opportunities to challenge. Therefore, if you succeed in the challenge, please try your best to protect your own arena. If you fail the challenge, then quickly challenge other challengers. Also, the battle format this time is 2v2. The freshman exchange match is the 2v2 battle format adopted. Understood. Chu Wai looked at the Big Kaori members and asked. Understood. Understood. Challenging the arena is quite interesting. Chen Qi narrowed his eyes and thought to himself. This can guarantee the selection of the strongest 6 people to the greatest extent. Well, should I be the champion from the very beginning, or challenge at the end? Chen Qi pondered. Okay, it's 8:40 in the morning, and at 9 o'clock the whole person competition selection for Biao officially begins. Why? The team battle will be held in the afternoon. Let's go to the battle stadium now, Chu Wai said. Afterwards, the huge crowd walked towards the battle stadium, attracting the attention of many students along the way. Soon after, everyone entered the battle stadium. In the middle of the first floor, there is a particularly large battlefield, which can accommodate square battles at the same time. This is the best arena. There are stands on both sides that can accommodate hundreds of people, and dozens of people are sitting in the front row, including teachers and students. The old members and the members who participated in the selection of the team battle went to the stands one after another, while the remaining 18 people stayed in the battlefield. Chu Wai glanced down, then raised his head and said loudly, "Okay, it's time. Next, it's your performance time." After saying these words, Chu Wai turned around and sat in the first row of stands. "Teacher Chin, it will start soon," Chu Wai said to Teacher Chin beside him. Chin teacher nodded with a smile, his face full of anticipation. "I wonder how these children have progressed during this time." Chu Wai replied with a smile, "You will be satisfied. It seems that they satisfied you very much." Chin teacher turned to look at Chu Wai and said, "Very satisfied." Chu Wai nodded. "Good." Chin teacher clapped his hands and laughed, and continued, "I'm looking forward to their performance." Center of the field. Without any hesitation, Shen Weiyui walked directly to the nearest battlefield and stood there calmly. This child has strong confidence in himself. Teacher Chin sighed. Choosing to be the champion from the very beginning must have strong confidence in one's own strength. She is very talented and has made rapid progress. Chu Wai nodded in agreement. At the same time, Lu Yan took a deep breath, walked quickly to a battlefield, and then looked around, as if guessing who would challenge him. "I remember this kid. His Earl Dervish Pokemon is a Wartortle. It seems that he has made great progress during this time," Chin teacher said. Chu Wai nodded and said, "Teacher Chin guessed right. Lu Yan worked very hard on weekdays, and both Pokemon broke through to the senior level. If he was around 10th at the beginning, he should be able to rank in the top 5 now." "Not bad," Chin teacher smiled. Afterwards, one after another, the members stepped out, either choosing to become the leader of the challenge, or choosing to challenge the leader of the challenge. And Chen Qi, who has always been the focus of the crowd, finally walked towards the last battlefield. He chose to be the champion and accept challenges from others. Becoming the champion means getting more experience points. Chen Qi certainly understands this truth. Seeing Chen Qi walking to the battlefield, Chin teacher leaned forward slightly, his lips moved, and asked, "How is his progress during this time?" Hearing this, Chu Wai's face was a little strange. He spoke for a while, and replied, "How should I put it? He's between the freshman exchange game and the collegiate league right now." As Chu Wai expected, Chin teacher's face showed a puzzled expression. Chu Wai carefully explained, in the freshman exchange competition, he was a surefire champion. However, with his strength, he is a little short of participating in the college student league. 9 times out of 10. Chin teacher's pupils shrank suddenly, his face full of disbelief. This means that Chu Wai believes that the championship is already in Chen Qi's pocket. And the latter sentence, being close to participating in the college student league, is also a very high evaluation. Teacher Chin took a deep breath, calmed down, and said, "What is the strength of his combustion now?" Chu Wai's complexion changed slightly, and he said solemnly, "Invincible at the elite level." Chin teacher's expression froze. When Chen Qi was standing on the battlefield, Lu Bin didn't hesitate anymore, and walked quickly to the command position directly opposite Chen Qi, looking at him from afar. The two pairs of pitch-black eyes looked at each other. Lu Bin suddenly stretched out his hand, pointed at Chen Qi, and said loudly, "Chen Qi, let me be your first challenger." Then, his eyes were like burning golden suns, and he grinned, "Let you see my progress during this period." Hearing this, Chen Qi raised the corner of his mouth slightly, and said, "I'm looking forward to your performance." Lu Bin stopped talking, threw the Pokeball in his palm, caught it with a snap, and stretched it out to Chen Qi with a taunt. A sophomore member acted as a referee. He held up the flag and said loudly, "Please send out your own Pokemon." Chen Qi held the Pokeball tightly and threw it at the same time as Lu Bin. "Go, Kirlia, go, Tyrant." At the same moment, white light bloomed, and 2 figures appeared on the field. As the number 1 in field military training, most people are full of curiosity about Chen Qi. As the second place, Lu Bin also attracted a lot of attention. The battle between the first place and the second place caused most people in the stands to look at the battlefield where the two were fighting. Lilu. Kirlia's red eyes are firm, her blue hair is swaying, and her white skirt is swaying, like a quiet and gentle little girl, standing quietly on the field. This is its first public battle, no room for loss. Seeing Flash's Kirlia, there was an uproar in the stands. Flash Metang, Flash Kirlia, is he a shiny Pokemon wholesaler? I'm a student, please give me this Flash Kirlia. Looking at Kirlia in front of him, Lu Bin's expression changed slightly. The father of fairy and dragon Pokemon. The other half, the orange Tyrant, opened its mouth ferociously, revealing its sharp fangs. Its lower jaw and belly are light gray, there is a ring of white hair around the neck, the forelimbs are short, and the hind limbs are thick. Pokemon. Tyrant Rock Dragon. Ability. Jaws of Might. Qualification. Elite. Level. LV28 Senior. Very close to the Elite Tyrant, this is Lu Bin's second Pokemon. Tyrant inhabited 100 million years ago. It is a Pokemon resurrected from fossils. It has a rough personality and can crunch anything with its mandibles. Worthy of being a descendant of a dragon family, both Pokemon are dragons. Chen Qi sighed. On the other hand, I was obviously born in a superpower family. Earl Dervish Pokemon and the strongest Pokemon are both Blaziken, which is incompatible with the superpower family. Sure enough, the Dodo and I are fellow travelers. Chen Qi secretly sighed. Stance. They are all very close to the elite level. Teacher Chin looked at them carefully, and then said. Very good, he went on. Kirlia is Chen Qi's third Pokemon, and Tyrant is Lu Bin's second Pokemon. Chu Wai added. Chin teacher nodded slightly, he understood what Chu Wai meant. After pondering for a moment, Teacher Chin said in a tone full of exclamation, the quality of new students is gradually improving every year. Chu Wai's eyes flickered slightly, and he nodded in agreement. Except for a few talented individuals, the overall quality of freshmen is getting better every year. More than 10 years ago, Lu Elite Stratini was only close to the elite level at this point in time. It wasn't until the eve of the freshman exchange competition that it evolved into Dragonair and broke through to the elite level. Immediately afterwards, Teacher Chin said, today, more than 10 years later, the Pokemon of geniuses like Lu Bin are very close to the elite level. And Tyrant is only Lu Bin's second Pokemon. As expected, there will be several elite-level Pokemon in this year's freshman exchange tournament. At this time, there is still half a month before the freshman exchange competition. Chu Wai suddenly sighed, and said softly, but Chen Qi's Combusken. Was already at the elite level a month and a half ago. Chin teacher was silent for a moment. After a long silence, Chin teacher said, you can't treat him like an ordinary freshman. Afterwards, Teacher Chin looked down at Chen Qi and said in a low voice, such a person is the future elite champion. On the field, seeing the Pokemon sent by both sides, the referee quickly waved down the flag and said loudly, the game begins. Rock Tomb. Roar. Tyrant let out a low cry, and the power of rock surged all over his body. In an instant, huge rocks appeared from the ground, and they smashed towards Kirlia with astonishing power. Teleport. Chen Qi calmly spoke with a calm gaze. Lilu. Kirlia's eyes glowed with blue light, and then her body flickered and disappeared in place. Boom. At the same time, huge rocks slammed into where Kirlia was just now, accompanied by deafening roars, setting off dust and smoke. Pay attention behind you. At this time, Lu Bin sternly said. Hearing this, Tyrant quickly turned his head and looked behind him. Kirlia was staring at him quietly with scarlet eyes. Disarming voice. Chen Qi said solemnly, Lilu Lilu. Kirlia stood in place, opened her mouth, and sang a melodious song. With a charming tone, Tyrant stood there blankly, looking in a trance for a while. Roar. Suddenly, the disarming voice turned into an invisible psywave, directly impacting Tyrant's spirit, causing it to have a splitting headache and roar. Disarming voice. Although the damage is low, it is better than double restraining Tyrant, so it can cause considerable damage. Bulldoze. Lu Bin frowned slightly, stretching out his arms and shouting. Roar. Tyrant endured the pain, it raised its hind legs high, and then fell heavily, stomped ground. For a moment, the surrounding ground vibrated slightly, and the fine stones on the field began to roll out. Confusion wraps the whole body and makes you float. Chen Qi looked at this scene with a calm expression. Lilu. A slight blue light appeared in Kirlia's eyes, and then the superpower was released, and the magical confusion covered it, and then made Kirlia float up, avoiding the damage of this bulldoze. It can still be like this. On the stands, Bai Yu was slightly amazed when she saw this. Chu Wai smiled slightly, and said, "Sometimes Kristoff's 367 imagination is more important than the orderly command." That's right. Teacher Chin nodded in agreement. Yes, in the real Pokemon world, the battle is much more flexible, and many of Kristoff's moves can be used. In Chen Chi's imagination, the role of confusion is definitely not just to attack rival, it can be effective in many ways. Just like now, seeing the scene in front of him, Lu Bin's expression changed slightly, but he didn't panic, because Kirlia's confusion only lasted for a moment and then landed on the ground again. Thoughts flashed. Lu Bin stretched out his arms and shouted, "Tyrant, crunch!" Roar! Tyrant roared in fury. It moved its strong hind legs, opened its mouth wide, and its fangs glowed white, biting towards Kirlia. Double team. Chen Chi ordered lightly. Rub rub rub. In an instant, Kirlia split into dozens of clones, occupying the entire field. Tyrant stopped in his tracks, scanning back and forth with fierce black eyes, looking for Kirlia's real body. Bulldoze. Lu Bin directly changed his strategy and shouted sharply. Dazzling gleam. At the same time, Chen Chi's voice sounded quietly. Lilu. Kirlia screamed loudly, her hands gathered in front of her chest, and a white light like a nuclear transformation bloomed, engulfing the entire venue. This kind of power, what are you kidding about? Chin Teacher's face was moved and he couldn't believe it. Chen Chi closed his eyes in good time, with a satisfied smile on his face. Dazzling gleam, it is the result of Kirlia's training during this period. This fairy-type move is very powerful and can be used for a long time. When Kirlia breaks through to the champion level, she can use Dazzling Gleam to wipe out all the dragon Pokemon in the Dragon Cave guarded by the Lu Bin family in one go. When Chen Chi opened his eyes again, Tyrant's body was scorched black, and he collapsed on the ground powerlessly. The referee glanced down, and then said, "Tyrant is disabled, so the winner is Kirlia." Hearing this sentence, Lu Bin shook his head helplessly and took Tyrant back. "You did a great job." Looking down at the Pokeball in his palm, he smiled gently. Then, he put the Pokeball back on his waist and took out another Pokeball. Lu Bin raised his eyes, stared at Chen Chi, who had a calm face on the opposite side, and smiled loudly. "Chen Chi, let's see how this child has grown during this period of time." Go, Gabite, crack. Accompanied by a low growl, Gabite stood firm on the field, with its claws folded and eyes sharp. This is an elite Gabite. Chin Teacher's eyes lit up when he saw Gabite on the field. Well, it should be only a few days after breaking through to the elite level. Then, after careful observation, Chin Teacher added, "Not bad, very good." There was a surprised smile on his face. Lu Bin has worked very hard these days. Chu Wai said slowly, and then he looked down at Lu Bin. Maybe he has motivation. Chin Teacher nodded in agreement and said, "Lu Bin is the most talented young man of the Lu family's generation, and his talent is not inferior to the original Lu elite. As I said before, the times are developing and the society is progressing. Each class of students will only get better and better. Lu Bin now is ahead of Lu elite at the same time. The first freshman exchange competition will be extremely intense." Chin Teacher sighed. Field. Lu Bin clenched his fists tightly, and the fighting spirit in his eyes was burning. "Uncle, my Gabite has broken through to the elite level. We will continue to move forward along the path you walked on." Then, beyond you, seeing Gabite in front of him, Chen Chi was slightly surprised, and then took Kirlia back into the Pokeball. "Thank you," he said softly. Immediately afterwards, Chen Chi raised his hand and threw a Pokeball, and said loudly, "It's up to you, Matang." Meadow. White light blooms, Matang makes a dull sound, and assist is magnetically suspended in midair. Matang again. Looking at Matang in front of him, Lu Bin shrank his pupils and his face became more serious. It was this Medic that easily defeated his own Gabite just over a month ago. At this moment, Medic faced Gabite again. Roar. Gabite's eyes were sharp, he stared at the opposite Metang, and for a moment remembered the scene when he was defeated. Lu Bin took a deep breath, fixed his gaze, and quietly waited for the referee's voice. This medic is also a medic. And this aura is obviously not the elite level of normal. Teacher Chin said in a dumb voice, dumbfounded. Besides that Combusken is elite, he has a second elite Pokemon. Chin teacher couldn't believe it. It is incredible to have one elite Pokemon, let alone two. Teacher Chin suddenly understood what Chu Wai said earlier, Chen-Chi is absolutely sure of the championship. Well, Teacher Chin feels the same way now. The battle begins. With the referee's order, the voices of the two sounded at the same time. Gabite, Earthquake, Matang, Guard. A certain senior in the stands heard Lu Bin's voice and nodded in satisfaction. It seems that Lu Bin absorbed the lesson of the last failure, and this time he used Earthquake from the very beginning. However, Chen-Chi's voice sounded at the same time, and senior's complexion changed. Guard, how dare he? Of course Chen-Chi dared. Lu Bin and Gabite's thoughts were almost written on their faces. The ground shook violently, the dust and smoke rose, the cracks broke, and Medig was protected by the emerald green barrier, unscathed. Although Medig is suspended in midair, the earthquake move is not just ground shaking, it will generate violent shock waves, during which the power of the earth surges, which can cause damage to Medig. Rock Tomb. Seeing that earthquake failed to inflict effective damage on Medig, Lu Bin sternly said sharply. Crack. Gabite raised his claws high, and dozens of huge rocks slammed towards Medig with a huge roar. Psychic. Chen-Chi said calmly. Meadow. Medig responded in a low voice, his eyes flashed with dazzling purple light, and a tyrannical wave of super energy spread rapidly in all directions. Immediately afterwards, the huge rocks were covered by purple light, as if pressing the pause button, they stagnated in midair. Then, these huge rocks turned around and turned towards Gabite. Can it still be like this? Lu Bin was horrified, and his face was startled. He tried his best to suppress the shock in his heart, and shouted loudly, quickly get out of the way. What a tyrannical psychic. Chin teacher leaned forward and said in shock. At the same time, Lei Jin folded his arms, looked at Medig on the field and smiled, what a fuss. Only Lei Jin knows how terrifying energy is contained in this Medig. Gabite raised his eyes froze, and he immediately started to run on the field at a high speed, avoiding the huge rock that hit him. Bullet punch. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Chen-Chi opened his mouth lightly. Meadow. Matang was ordered to fly up at an astonishing speed, Spark dashed in front of Gabite, and swung his saffron-colored arms loudly. Bang, bang, bang. In an instant, Medig swung his fist as fast and hard as a bullet. Roar. After a while, Gabite's face, abdomen, and arms showed Maynard's fist prints, and it made a dull painful sound. Shadow Claw. Lu Bin blushed and shouted passionately. Substitute. Chen-Chi shouted. Suddenly, Gabite swung his sharp claws made of shadows, and the shadows spread, while ghost energy surged. Click. The sharp claw swung away suddenly, hitting Medig. The latter is like a punctured air balloon, deflated in the blink of an eye, and then fluttered with the wind. Above. Lu Bin shouted suddenly. Gabite raised his head, only to see the silver Medig floating in midair, with dazzling white light shining all over his body, shining in front of his eyes. The light of the whole body converges at one point, exuding terrifying power, endless energy emerges, and in the next second it turns into a flash cannon, and strikes towards Gabite with a bang. Boom. Suddenly, Gabite was swallowed by endless white light, and then bombarded the ground, setting off an air wave that spread layer by layer. The air wave blew Chen-Chi's black hair, and he stood quietly on the spot, his clothes swaying, and his face was calm. Saw. The air waves dissipated slowly, and Gabite was covered in scorched marks, and his figure was crumbling. Meadow. Metang stared at Gabite closely, his big red eyes met his. Boom. Finally, Gabite howled unwillingly, fell straight backwards, and immediately circled his eyes. Seeing this, the referee confirmed that Gabite had fallen into a coma contest condition, held up the flag belonging to Chen-Chi, and said loudly, Gabite is out of combat power. Therefore, the winner is Chen-Chi. Suddenly, there was warm applause from the stands. This match, even in the freshman exchange match, is at least at the level of the semifinals, or even the level of the finals. Teacher Chin sighed, clapping his hands. Afterwards, he stared straight at Chen-Chi, and said slowly, in this way, I look forward to meeting his Combusken even more. Immediately afterwards, he turned his head to look at Chu Wai, and said with a smile, see if it is as you said, invincible at the elite level. Feel. Lu Bin took Gabite back into the Pokeball, with a big smile on his face. There are still many things to do. Come on next time. Then, he raised his eyes to stare at Chen Qi on the opposite side, and said with a helpless smile, it seems that the gap is quite obvious. Be the champion, I'm going to challenge others. When the voice fell to the ground, Lu Bin waved his hand and went to challenge other battlefields. Looking at Lu Bin's leaving back, Chen Qi smiled, and then stayed where he was, waiting for the arrival of other challengers. But in the following time, no one challenged him. On the contrary, the other 5 battlegrounds were filled with people coming and going, fierce battles started one after another. Chen Qi simply moved a small bench and sat there, watching the others fight. Shen Weiui's Gothita is infinitely close to the elite level, playing rival repeatedly in the battle, which is very disgusting. Her second Pokemon is an Espeon that is also near elite. The 2 psychic Pokemon used disgusting tricks together, allowing Shen Weiui to win many battles and stand quietly in the same place. The other side, Lu Yan's strength was beyond Chen Qi's expectations. His Wartortle was already very close to the elite level, and his combat power was very good. His second Pokemon is a senior level Vulpix, and it looks like Breeder is very good, also winning for Lu Yan. With the help of these 2 Pokemon, Lu Yan successfully protected the ring. As for Lu Bin, needless to say, with the elite Gabite, apart from Chen Qi, he is invincible. After failing to challenge Chen Qi, he directly challenged another arena and won, and then the Protect Arena has continued until now. Time passed slowly, and soon 3 hours arrived. Today, the 6 members of the successful Protect Arena are Chen Qi, Lu Bin, Lu Yan, Shen Weiui and 2 passers-by. Chu Wai and Chin Teacher stood up and walked in front of the 18 people participating in the individual competition selection. Congratulations, everyone, you have successfully qualified to participate in the freshman exchange competition. Chu Wai first said to the 6 members of the Protect Arena. Afterwards, Chu Wai looked at the others, smiled slightly, and said, it doesn't matter if you can't participate, the university time is still very long, and BU is waiting for you. After the words fell to the ground, Chu Wai turned to look at Teacher Chin beside him, and said softly, Teacher Chin, please. Chin Teacher nodded slightly, with a smile on his lips, looked at the 6 people standing in front, and said, let me introduce myself, I am the coaching teacher of this freshman exchange competition, Chin Chen. I just watched your match, and you performed very well, and the overall level even surpassed the previous one. But, there are still some deficiencies. These deficiencies seem to be small problems, but they are very fatal in front of rivals of the same level. Chin Teacher narrowed his eyes and slowly scanned his relatives. Zhongda, you're. Chin Teacher first looked at Zhongda, the passerby on the far right, and slowly pointed out his shortcomings in the battle. And you. Afterwards, Teacher Chin looked at the woman passing by from right to left. After a while, Teacher Chin's eyes fell on Lu Yan. The sharp gaze made Lu Yan straighten up involuntarily, his heart pounding. Chin Teacher said in a deep voice, your Wartortle breeder is good, the most urgent thing is to take advantage of this half-month to upgrade to the elite level. As for Vulpix, try to evolve it into Ninetales, which will greatly increase its combat power. The last point, don't be tied up in the battle, be decisive, otherwise it is easy to miss good opportunities. Understood. Lu Yan nodded deeply. The last point that Chin Teacher said was indeed his small problem all along, that he was not decisive enough to command, and lacked courage. As for Shen Weiui, Chin Teacher tilted his head to look at Shen Weiui with a calm face, pondered for a while, and then said, you are quite talented in command, but Pokemon's hard power is a little weaker. In the battle, Shen Weiui almost relied on her excellent command and the disgusting methods of Super Pokemon to win. My suggestion is to focus on improving Pokemon's hard power during this time, while allowing Gothita to strive to break through to elite level. Okay, Shen Weiui replied with her red lips slightly parted. As for you, Chin Teacher finally looked at Lu Bin, he said with a smile, continue to improve Tyrant's strength during this time. Well, Chin Teacher paused, carefully considered, and then said, you lack a little spirituality in conducting, and you can use Kristoff's unrestrained imagination. Spirituality. Hearing this, Lu Bin's eyes flickered, and Chen Qi's command just now appeared in his mind involuntarily. My suggestion is, during this period of time, go and watch the highlights of the previous freshman exchange competitions. There are many wonderful conductors in it, which should be helpful to you. Chin teacher said in a deep voice. Of course, you can all go and have a look. Immediately afterwards, Teacher Chin said to the rest of the people. After the words fell to the ground, Teacher Chin's eyes finally settled on Chen Qi. Others also cast curious eyes, wondering if Teacher Chin would point out Chen Qi's shortcomings. Chin teacher stared at Chen Qi in front of him, his eyes flashed, and he thought for a long time. Finally, under the watchful eyes of everyone, Chin teacher said, just keep the current contest condition. I look forward to your final championship trophy. Lambda. This kind of evaluation is too outrageous. Chu Wai thinks that Chen Qi can fully bear this evaluation. The talented medic just now is enough to sweep everything in the freshman exchange competition, not to mention that Chen Qi also has a more powerful Pokemon. 2 elite-level Pokemon, one of them is invincible to the elite-level Pokemon, how does the other players compare? Chin teacher continued. You can usually train by yourself. Sunday is the unified training time. Please don't miss it then. Okay, no problem Chin teacher. Everyone responded. Chu Wai clapped his hands and said with a smile, thank you for your hard work in the morning, let's go to dinner first. In the afternoon, we will continue to conduct team competition selection here. You can come and watch. After everyone had left, Teacher Chin called Chen Qi to stop. May I meet your Combuskin? Teacher Chin had eager eyes. Chen Qi nodded slightly, okay. Immediately, he raised his hand and threw the luxury ball. White light bloomed, and Blaziken stood firm on the field. Blaziken. Seeing Blaziken in front of him, Teacher Chin knew that Combuskin had evolved into Blaziken. After careful observation, he sighed aloud. No wonder Chu Zun commented that your Blaziken is invincible to the elite level. Now that I can see it, it really is true. Afterwards, his eyes flickered, and he said in a low voice, if you continue to improve at your speed, maybe you will be able to participate in the College Student League next year. Teacher Chin, I think so too. Chu Wai nodded in agreement. When is the College Student League held? Chen Qi asked curiously. Chu Wai replied, at the beginning of December every year, that is, near the end of the term. Hearing Chu Wai's answer, Chen Qi nodded thoughtfully. There are still 2 months. That's enough, he muttered to himself. Chin teacher said, there is still more than a year before the College Student League next year. You can breed 3 professional level Pokemon and achieve excellent results in the College Student League. If you can get good results in the College Student League in the first semester of your sophomore year, that would be really unheard of. Chu Wai looked at Chen Qi and smiled. Chin teacher continued, records are always created by young people. Before this, no one would have thought that Lu Elite's field military training record would be broken by you. There is no doubt that you have the ability to continue to break records and create legends. I am waiting for you. Chen Qi was slightly shocked. He felt unparalleled trust from Teacher Chin's words. It seems that he is sure that he will continue to break records and create his own legend. Chu Wai finally said, okay brother, you can go to eat quickly. Okay. Chen Qi nodded and left the battle stadium. When Chen Qi's figure faded away, Chu Wai suddenly glanced faintly at Teacher Chin beside him, and said, Teacher Chin, what you said just now seems familiar. Ah, is there? Chin teacher coughed dryly and smiled mischievously. Immediately afterwards, Chu Wai stared at Teacher Chin closely. Teacher Chin, do you say something like this every year? 2 years ago it was for me, this year it was for Chen Qi. Chin teacher's eyes wandered, scratched his head, and replied, this is also to promote your enthusiasm. Anyway, it doesn't cost money to say these things. If these words really work, everyone will be happy. Afterwards, he paused for a while, and then said again, besides, I really think that Chen Qi has the possibility to create his own legend. With deep eyes, his hands behind his back, he said in a low voice, he is much, much beyond his peers now. On Monday, October 4th, the weather was fine. It has been 3 days since the selection of the freshman exchange competition. This weekend, Chen Qi, as usual, went to the Xuanxin dojo to practice the Xuanxin calm mind method and psychic skills. After this period of practice, the psychic in Chen Qi's body continued to grow, and now the teleport distance has expanded to about 30 meters, which is a remarkable improvement. This distance is enough at this stage, and he will learn the skills to strengthen Pokemon accurately in the next step. Attach Psychic to Pokemon to strengthen its strength. In addition, John Lulian successfully broke through to the elite level in these 3 days. At this point, all Pokemon in Chen Chi's team have elite power. Originally, it was necessary to conduct a unified training camp under the leadership of Teacher Chin on Sunday, but Teacher Chin never included Chen Chi in the training team from the beginning to the end. He simply waved his hand and told Chen Chi not to participate in the training camp, but to keep his own training. In the afternoon, after Chen Chi finished class, he came to the library, where Chu Yuning was already waiting. The two nodded slightly, did not communicate with each other, walked straight into the library, found each other to read books, and sat down quietly. Time passed slowly, until the evening, when the two walked out of the library side by side. Chen Chi. Chu Yuning suddenly called out to Chen Chi. What's the matter? Chen Chi turned his head and asked. Chu Yuning's slender eyelashes moved, her eyes flickered, and she asked in a low voice, I want to ask you, which form is better for Eevee to evolve into? Hearing this question, Chen Chi pondered for a moment, and then carefully analyzed. I don't recommend evolving into the 3 forms of electricity, fire, and water. Not only the evolution cost is high, but also the cost performance is low. The most important thing is that the appearance is not very good. Leafeon and Glaceon are also not suitable, and the evolutionary conditions are relatively harsh. Chen Chi continued. Afterwards, Chen Chi stared at Chu Yuning and said, I suggest you choose one of the remaining 3 forms. Espeon, Eevee, and Sylveon. Although there are prerequisites for evolving into these 3 forms, it is not difficult. Chu Yuning's delicate face was full of seriousness. After listening to Chen Chi's suggestion, she sincerely thanked her. Thank you for your suggestion, I will seriously consider it. Booyah. At the same time, the Pokeball on Chu Yuning's waist swayed, white light bloomed, and Eevee appeared in front of Chen Chi. Immediately afterwards, Eevee jumped onto Chu Yuning's shoulder very skillfully, opened her big brown eyes, and raised her head towards Chen Chi. This child is expressing his gratitude to you. Chu Yuning said softly with a slight smile on the corner of her mouth. Chen Chi noticed that the Eevee in front of him was about to break through to the senior level, so he said, You don't need to thank me, I just made a small suggestion. Chu Yuning didn't comment. She waved goodbye to Chen Chi with a peaceful smile on her face. As the sun set in the west, the afterglow of the setting sun draped over Chu Yuning's body, stretching her shadow very, very long. Not long after, Chu Yuning returned to the bedroom. Roommate Yang Yi, who was buried in her book, saw Chu Yuning come back, raised her head, first clicked her tongue twice, looked up and down, and then said, Xiao Ning, you have been very strange these days. Tell me, what do you go to do every afternoon? Yang Yi sat up straight, quite unwilling to give up without asking. Chu Yuning replied, reading in the library. But I haven't seen you during this time. Yang Yi's eyes were sharp. It's the library of Imperial University. Hearing this sentence, Yang Yi was taken aback for a moment, then squinted his eyes, and muttered in a low voice, You need a borrowing card to enter the Imperial University library, and you know a student from Imperial University, so there is only one truth. Quote. Yang Yi stared at Chu Yuning with burning eyes, and said loudly, You borrowed the card from that friend of yours. Chu Yuning nodded slightly, yes. Afterwards, Yang Yi walked quickly to Chu Yuning who was sitting on the stool, stared at her condescendingly, and said, The sixth sense tells me that you are not simple, there must be some kind of relationship. Chu Yuning shook her head and said, No. Yang Yi nodded thoughtfully, then patted Chu Yuning's shoulder carelessly, and said, Xiao Ning, because learning is the best time to fall in love. Think about it, before we were trapped in the sea of books, and after graduation we had to be busy with work. Only the time of college is the best time to fall in love. Think about it, what a wonderful thing it is to hold your boyfriend's hand and walk side by side on campus. Yang Yi clasped his hands tightly, his eyes twinkling with longing. So, if you think this friend is not bad, don't hesitate to show your courage in the field military training. Yang Yi's tone couldn't help but raise a point. But no matter how much Yang Yi encouraged and persuaded, Chu Yuning just smiled and shook her head. Thank you Xiao Yi, I fully understand what you mean. She raised her head and looked at Yang Yi, who was panting slightly, with a warm current in her heart. Chu Yuning said, but I think that at this stage, we should work hard to become an excellent person. Yang Yi looked at Chu Yuning suspiciously, then his eyes were as sharp as Conan's, and he said slowly, "You have never denied your relationship with that boy, and now you say something like this. I get it, you feel like you're not good enough for him now." Chu Yuning was slightly taken aback, and then fell silent for a moment. Seeing that she guessed right, Yang Yi's heart was slightly touched, but she still said loudly, "It's okay Xiaoning, so what about the students of Imperial University? We work hard, we may not be worse than him." This time, Chu Yuning pursed her lower lip slightly, and said, "Xiao Yi, he is different." "What's different? He's good, very, very good." The other side, Chen Qi had just returned to the dormitory when Father Chen's call came. "The thing you asked me to do some time ago has signs," Father Chen said. Chen Qi raised his eyebrows and asked, "Master fighting?" Some time ago, Chen Qi specifically asked Father Chen to find a fighting master near the imperial capital to improve Blaziken's fighting level. Yes, he is a well-qualified fighting master, and he had a high reputation in the fighting world in his early years. At the same time, his own fighting level is very high, and he can fight naked with fighting Pokemon. Hearing this, Chen Qi's eyes lit up. This master is called Ji Yushi, a top-level master trainer, who has won 2 consecutive World Martial Arts Championships. He announced his retirement a few years ago, and has been living in seclusion in the mountains since then, and his traces are hard to find. Top Master Class. There are also strong and weak masters, and the top masters are undoubtedly the strongest group. The World Martial Arts Association is the highest level fighting event in Dongwang, and only fighting-type Pokemon can participate. The minimum entry qualification is professional level, and the highest entry qualification is master level. Being able to win the championship in the World Budokai means that he has already stood at the pinnacle of the fighting world. I entrusted a lot of connections to help you find Master Ji Yuzai's current residence, which is located in a deep mountain near the imperial capital. I will send you the coordinates later. Father Chen continued. Okay. Father Chen paused, and then said, "When the time comes, after you find Master Ji Yushi, directly tell your reason for coming, and then explain your identity." Chen Qi pondered for a while, and then asked, "Does Master Ji Yushi know Grandpa?" Father Chen was taken aback for a moment, and then asked back, "How do you know?" Chen Qi said lightly, "Obviously. Principal Wang of Imperial University, Master Zan Mu of Xuanxin Dojo, and this Master Ji Yushi all have a long history with Chen Wei. Your grandfather traveled all over the world in his early years and had a lot of experiences. It's normal for him to meet some friends," Father Chen said. Afterwards, Father Chen reminded, "But you have to pay attention to one thing. As far as I know, there have been trainers looking for Master Ji Yushi from time to time over the years to ask for advice. Although advice is available, it must pass the test of Master Ji Yushi. The test is full of strange things, but you have to be careful. Although the old man has a long friendship with Master Ji Yushi, this is a matter of principle, and Master Ji Shi will be no exception to you." Understood. Chen Qi's eyes twinkled slightly, and he nodded. Father Chen said again, "I remember that there are still more than 10 days before the opening of the freshman exchange competition. Qian Lihao, you can take the time to find Master Ji Yushi and give some pointers, maybe Blaziken's strength can be improved to a higher level." "Okay," Chen Qi replied. After hanging up the phone, Chen Qi searched for Master Ji Yuzai's information online. As Father Chen said, this Master Ji Yushi is a famous figure in the fighting world, but he lived in seclusion in the mountains a few years ago and has never been heard from again. Now that both Kirlia and Matang have broken through to the elite level, it's just a matter of making steady progress. Improving Blaziken's fighting level has long been on the agenda. It shouldn't take much time to go this time. Chen Qi thought about Dao Jia secretly. Regarding this matter, Chen Qi had thought about it some time ago, and after raising Blaziken's fighting level, he completely focused on Kirlia and Matang. Well, there's one more thing. Although Kirlia has broken through to the elite level, it has not evolved. The situation may be the same as Blaziken, which still needs to accumulate energy in the body and wait until the body is completely filled before it can evolve. There is no rush for this matter. It can be as fast as 2 or 3 days, or as short as a week. It will definitely evolve. So next, go look for Master Ji Yushi tomorrow morning. After making up his mind, Chen Qi started to pack his things, asked the head teacher for leave, and waited for tomorrow. Next day, as soon as it was dawn, Chen Qi got on the express train to the suburbs. The location provided by Chen's father is located outside the northern suburbs, almost at the junction of the suburbs and the wild. Chen Qi first had to go to the suburbs by car, and then walk to Master Ji Yu Zai's residence. The car drove smoothly all the way, and arrived in the suburbs after more than an hour. Afterwards, Chen Qi got out of the car and proceeded along the direction indicated by the map. After a while, rolling hills appeared in front of my eyes, and the trees became more and more dense, and became taller and stronger. It is located at the junction of the suburbs and the wild, where many wild Pokemon live. Chen Qi thought for a moment and sent Kirlia out. Lilu. Kirlia looked at Chen Qi timidly, looking around at the unfamiliar environment, with a puzzled expression on her face. Chen Qi squatted down, smiled slightly, and said, "You will protect my safety from now on." Lilu. Kirlia tilted her little head first, showing a troubled look on her face. Immediately afterwards, it nodded heavily, its red eyes full of determination. Lilu, I will definitely protect your safety. Soon, one person, one pet began to move forward. It is located near the imperial capital, where senior-level Pokemon are more common, and elite-level Pokemon will appear occasionally. As for professional-level Pokemon, only real wild ones have them. Compared with the original place where the baby practiced, Han River Forest, it is much more dangerous here. However, according to Chen Qi's understanding, there is no famous forest near the imperial capital, and the Pokemon level is generally at gymnasium level and below. The reason is simple. The Emperor is the capital of Dongwang, the Dongwang Pokemon Association is located here, the powerful trainer knows no geometry, and the wild Pokemon are in a difficult situation here. Powerful Pokemon can only be bred in a place with a large area and few people. Just like the Kunlun Mountains, the majestic Mount Everest, and even the vast desert in the far northern Xinjiang, these places are inhabited by countless powerful Pokemon, and there are even many masters and elites. These places have been taboo places since ancient times, and the powerful trainers cannot be lost. It just so happened that Chen Qi was full of curiosity about these places. With so many thoughts in her mind, Kirlia suddenly stopped at 660 steps, her blue hair was swaying, and her red eyes were vigilantly looking at the grass on the left. Chen Qi also stopped at the same spot, turning his head to look at the grass on the left. These Pokemon always like to hide in the grass, waiting for the destined trainer to have a close contact with them. Under the simultaneous gaze of two pairs of eyes, the grass swayed and rustled, and then a bloated gray rabbit came out of it. It has very thick ears, a brown sweater on both sides of its waist, and a yellow middle part. Pokemon. Diggersby Normal Ground. Ability. Hercules. Qualification. Gym. Level. LV34 Elite. Elite level Diggersby, just right as Kirlia's rival. Diggersby and Kirlia looked at each other, eye contact, which meant that the battle was imminent. Pay attention to its ears. Chen Qi reminded aloud. The power of Diggersby ears is comparable to that of a forklift, and it can easily lift more than 1 ton of rock, which is its proud weapon. Coupled with this Diggersby's ability, the threat of Hercules soars. Lilu. Kirlia responded softly, her eyes determined. Diggersby was the first to attack. It took a step forward and turned into an afterimage, charging towards Kirlia with lightning speed. Quick attack. Psyshock. Chen Qi said with calm eyes. Lilu. Kirlia's eyes glowed with a dazzling purple light, and the super energy wave vented out from the whole body, turning into a materialized thought wave for a while, and went away through the air. Diggersby is fast, but Nimbo is even faster. Boom. Diggersby met Nianbo almost abruptly, and was directly hit head-on. Thought waves rushed into its mind, hitting Diggersby's nerves time and time again, causing him to have a splitting headache and scream again and again. As a superpower Pokemon that focuses on long-distance output, Kirlia has to keep a safe distance from rival from beginning to end for long-distance consumption. If rival is close to her body, it means that Kirlia has already fallen into a huge disadvantage. Magical Leaf. Seeing that the Diggersby contest condition was not good, Chen Qi seized the opportunity and ordered decisively. Lilu. After the words fell, Kirlia danced lightly, and the rich grass-type energy surged with it, and pieces of magical leaf appeared out of thin air, dancing around Kirlia. Immediately afterwards, pieces of magical leaf burst out of the air, attacking Diggersby. Boom! The magical leaf exploded on Diggersby's chest, and a huge energy light wave exploded, setting off a puff of black smoke. Under Kirlia's close watch, the black smoke gradually dissipated, Diggersby's eyes turned into circles, and he collapsed on the ground powerlessly. Lilu. Seeing Diggersby incapacitated, Kirlia smiled and danced happily around Chen-Chi. Good performance. Chen-Chi squatted down and rubbed Kirlia's small head. Lilu. Kirlia squinted her eyes, feeling happy. Okay, let's move on. Chen-Chi continued. This Diggersby is just a small episode on the way forward. Chen-Chi and Kirlia continued to head towards Master Ji Yuzai's residence. The further you go, the less traces of human life, but there are trainers like Chen-Chi passing by. Soon, the sun was hanging high above the head, and it was almost noon. Chen-Chi glanced at the map and found that he was not too far away from Master Ji Yuzai's residence. He found an open space to rest and eat with Kirlia. Let's go. After the break, Chen-Chi took Kirlia on the road. Until about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, the vision in front of me became wider and wider, and the trees on both sides finally became sparse. Finally, a path appeared in Chen-Chi's field of vision, and at the end of this path stood a small wooden house. It's finally here. Chen-Chi looked at the cabin in front of him, and finally let out a long sigh of relief. This Ji Yushi master is really leisurely and elegant, living in seclusion alone in such an inaccessible place. There is no infrastructure nearby and no one else interacts. How did he live in this kind of seclusion for several years? Chen-Chi walked forward along the path, and the trees on both sides gradually turned into a wide field, but he didn't know what was planted in the field. Not long after, Chen-Chi came to the cabin. In front of the cabin is a flat yard with a reclining chair, and an old man wearing a straw hat and tang suit is lying on the reclining chair. At 3 o'clock in the afternoon, there was still strong sunlight, and it fell on the yard and on the old man. The old man kept his eyes tightly closed, his head shook slightly, and he had a sense of leisurely contentment. Beside the old man, there was an Infernape sitting cross-legged. It also closed its eyes tightly, as if it was bathing in the sun just like the old man. And Chen-Chi keenly noticed that the mouth of this Infernape opened and closed, it seemed to be moving regularly, and it was carrying out some kind of mysterious breathing. Pokemon. Infernape, Fire, Fighting. Ability. Iron Fist. Qualification. Elite. Level. LV69, Master. Infernape at the pinnacle of Masters. Looking at the data panel of Infernape, Chen-Chi was shocked. In a farther corner, a BCFA, Puccina is drooping and flicking its tail. Pokemon. Puccina, Evil. Ability. Scud. Qualification. Occupation. Level. IV15, Normal. Unremarkable Puccina. Roar. After seeing Chen-Chi, it raised its head and barked softly at Chen-Chi. What's your business here, little friend? Suddenly, the old man slowly opened his slightly cloudy eyes, and looked up at Chen-Chi. Chen-Chi bowed slightly, and said hello politely. Master Ji Yushi, hello. After Chen-Chi clarified his identity and explained his purpose of coming, Master Ji Yushi stood up from the reclining chair. Chen-Chi had just realized that Master Ji Yushi was more than 1.9 meters tall, with a burly figure, and his tang suit couldn't hide his tendons. This Master Ji Yushi, at first glance, is an excellent fighter. Master Ji Yushi narrowed his eyes, looked Chen-Chi up and down, his cloudy eyes gradually became deep. After a long time, Master Ji Yushi stroked his beard and sighed. Time is not forgiving, I didn't expect old man Chen's grandson to be so old. How is he recently? Master Ji Yushi stared at Chen-Chi and asked aloud. Everything is fine, Chen-Chi replied. Well, that's good. Master Ji Yushi nodded slightly, and then said slowly, do you know the prerequisite for asking me to give advice? Chen-Chi replied in a deep voice. Knowing a little bit, I need to pass your test. A slight smile appeared on Master Ji Yuzai's face. He stroked his beard and said with a smile, yes, although you are a descendant of an old friend, you cannot miss the tests you should have. Let me think about it. What test will I give you? After the words fell, Master Ji Yushi paced back and forth with his hands behind his back, he looked at Chen-Chi for a while, and looked up at the sun in the sky for a while. After a while, Master Ji Yushi looked at Chen-Chi and asked, "What is the strength of the Pokemon that I need to teach?" "Elite class," Chen-Chi replied truthfully. "Elite level." Master Ji Yushi nodded slightly, then squinted his eyes slightly, stroked his beard and said, "There is a cave in the northwest, and I don't know which Pokemon stole my golden belt, so I let it go. In this cave. Go and fetch it for me." If Chen-Chi guessed correctly, this golden belt should be a reward for becoming the champion of the world Budokai. The corners of Chen-Chi's mouth twitched. He really didn't know which Pokemon was so bold as to steal the golden belt from the Master Infernape's eyelids. Obviously, this reason is somewhat clumsy. But Chen-Chi had no choice but to nod, and replied, "Okay." Master Ji Yushi didn't speak, but looked up at the sun in the sky, and said in a low voice, "You must remember to bring the golden belt back to me before sunset. Otherwise, the test fails." "Understood," Chen-Chi said. "Go." Then, Master Tong-Shi said nothing. Chen-Chi bid farewell to Master Ji Yushi and set off towards the northwest. When Chen-Chi's figure faded away, Master Ji Yushi quickly turned around and walked into the room, looking for his golden belt. "Where's the gold belt? Where is my golden belt?" Fortunately, Master Ji Yushi finally found his golden belt. He walked out of the house with the golden belt and came to Infernape. "Go, put the golden belt in the old place," Master Ji Yushi said. Infernape slowly opened its eyes, it glanced at Master Ji Yushi lightly, and then took the golden belt. "Go." Master Ji Yushi waved. Infernape stood up, his figure flickered, and he was gone. Ah! Puccina stood up, barking in the direction Infernape was leaving. After more than 10 minutes, Master Ji Yushi was still lying on the chair, lazily basking in the afternoon sun. Suddenly, a small black spot appeared in the distance. In the blink of an eye, Infernape appeared in front of Master Ji Yushi like a light. "Is it done?" Master Ji Yushi asked casually with half-opened eyes. Infernape nodded slightly, then continued to sit cross-legged on the ground, and began to breathe rhythmically. Seeing this, Master Ji Yushi scolded with a smile, "The energy is not as good as mine." Afterwards, Master Ji Yushi leaned back and let his body fit on the reclining chair. He looked to the northwest and said bluntly, "Old Man Chen's grandson. Interesting and interesting, but it's not that simple to pass my test." He seemed to be talking to the air in front of him, and he was also talking to himself. The cave is not difficult to find, it is easy to find. But after entering the cave, there are branches inside, leading to different directions. Besides, the cave is dark and dark. Those who enter must have a good psychological quality, and they must also face the occasional sneak attack by wild Pokemon. If you can find the right path and see the golden belt, you will have to face the last hurdle. Won a gold belt from a professional Pokemon. Speaking of this, Master Ji Yushi raised the corners of his mouth slightly, and said softly, "Facing professional level Pokemon, he will definitely return in a disastrous defeat. In this way, if he didn't get back the gold belt within the specified time, his test has been declared a failure." An unpredictable smile appeared on Master Ji Yu's face, and he said softly, "And this is the first step of my guidance. If you want to make it grow, you must first dampen its ambition." Master Ji Yushi knows the children of this kind of big family very well, they are proud and arrogant. In the face of this kind of people, first of all, we must severely hit their self-confidence, crush their pride, and then give pointers slowly. In this way, we will get twice the result with half the effort. Master Ji Yushi said slowly while lying on the chair. Cave. Chen-Chi put the Ralts back into the Pokeball and released Blaziken instead. The location given by Master Ji Yushi was very vague, just a northwest direction. Chen-Chi simply took out the compass and walked along the northwest direction. The location information is so vague, which means that this cave must be very conspicuous and easy to find. With Blaziken on the sidelines, there are few wild Pokemon that dare to attack. Chen-Chi and Blaziken walked through the dense forest, and the scenery in front of them became more and more open after a while. At the end of the road, a dark hole came into view. Should it be here? Chen-Chi squinted his eyes and muttered in a low voice. It's really conspicuous. Chen-Chi walked quickly to the entrance of the cave, which was about 2 meters high, with bare rock walls on both sides, extending far away. Are there Pokemon around? Chen Qi didn't rush into the cave, but turned to Blaziken and asked. Since it is a test, getting the golden belt is the second, the most important thing is the tribulations that will be encountered along the way. Master Ji Yushi will definitely not allow himself to pass the test easily, and will try to set up some levels, such as traps that are not fatal but troublesome, such as Pokemon hiding in the dark and so on. Ha! Blaziken shook his head, indicating that there are no wild Pokemon around here. Well, let's go in then. Chen Qi nodded slightly and followed Blaziken into the cave. Before walking a few steps, Chen Qi found that the inside of the cave was very dark, and he couldn't see his fingers. Chen Qi thought for a moment, and released Kirlia again. Please, Chen Qi said. Lilu, Kirlia put her hands together in front of her chest, and the dazzling white light radiated from her whole body, illuminating the way forward. Flash, a must-have move for adventure. Although Blaziken can provide brightness through the flames sprayed from the wrist, its visibility and duration are not as good as Flash. Under the illumination of Flash, Chen Qi continued to move towards the depths of the cave. But it didn't take long for Chen Qi to encounter the first problem. There was a fork in the road ahead, and the original road was divided into two, each leading to a different direction. No wonder the time is limited, we need to go back before sunset. Chen Qi muttered. Afterwards, Chen Qi carefully looked at the fork in front of him, and after confirming that he didn't find any relevant clues, he said in a low voice, if you go wrong, it will probably waste a lot of time. I am not afraid of others, but I am afraid that after walking along a certain road for a long time, I finally find out that it is wrong. In this way, all time is wasted. Thoughts flashed, Chen Qi raised his hand and threw a Pokeball. Metatang made his debut. Metang, you and I, set the left path. Blaziken, you and Kirlia, take the right path. Chen Qi said, looking at the three Pokemon. Then, he looked at Kirlia again, and said, the two of us must keep in touch. If your way is cut off, come to me with Blaziken teleport. Lilu, Kirlia bowed slightly to show her understanding. Chen Qi's method is very simple, divide himself and three Pokemon into two teams, one road each. He and Kirlia can establish a connection with Psychic, which is a bit like telepathy, that is, they can listen to the other person's heart and regard the other person's location as a coordinate. Teleport is not aimless, it does not move arbitrarily, it needs the support of coordinates. To put it simply, if you want to teleport, you need to meet the prerequisites. That is, you have seen the place you want teleport to reach, so that as long as this place is within the range of teleport, imagine this place in your mind, and you can reach it in an instant. Second, have a supporting teleport coordinates. Kirlia, who can establish contact with Chen Qi through Psychic, is such a coordinate. If one of these points cannot be achieved, teleport will not be realized. Chen Qi is with Medig. This is because Medig can protect Chen Qi, and Medig owns Psychic. Chen Qi can directly carry it for teleport. Regarding this point, Chen Qi has done an experiment, carrying Medig with Psychic to teleport, the moving distance will be increased. Poor Medig, obviously a superpower Pokemon, can't master teleport in the end. On the other side, Kirlia and Blaziken are equally reasonable. With Kirlia's current Psychic, it is not a problem to take Blaziken teleport for hundreds of meters. In short, whichever side of the road is cut off, they will immediately teleport to the other side. Okay, let's go. Chen Qi clapped his hands and led Medig towards the left road. Kirlia also followed Blaziken into the right lane. At the same time, the super energy fluctuations in Chen Qi's body vented out, establishing a connection with Kirlia in his mind, and he could vaguely feel its position. This road is still dark, but fortunately Medig can also use Flash to provide cal. The surroundings are very quiet, only the sound of Medig flying can be heard in my ears. While walking, Chen Qi confirmed that the connection with Kirlia had not been broken. About 10 minutes later, a small sound suddenly came from the front. Be careful, Chen Qi reminded Metang softly. Medig opened his big red eyes, and soon saw a pale yellow Pokemon appearing in front of him. It has two large claws, a white belly and mouth, and dark brown spikes on its back. Chen Qi took a closer look. It was an elite Sandslash with a level of 34. This Sandslash seemed to be specially waiting for Chen Qi to settle down, and when Chen Qi saw him, Sandslash waved its paw and stared. Chen Qi understood. This is a mob blocking the way. You can solve it yourself. Chen Qi looked at Matang, who was ready to go, and said, "Meadow." Matang couldn't wait to meet him. "Don't use Da Fan beat up," Chen Qi reminded. Sandslash took the lead in attacking. It moved swiftly, and waved its sharp claws at the approaching Medig, awe-inspiring. Meadow. Metan knows that he has rough skin and thick flesh, and such a small attack can't help him. It resolutely confronted it head-on, and the saffron-colored orbird claws slashed fiercely with astonishing momentum. Hiss. The claws collided, and the black pupils of the Mountain Master and the red pupils of Metang looked at each other. The next second, Sandslash let out a dull cry of pain, and a Maynard scar appeared on its white abdomen, and it subconsciously took 2 steps back. Medig smiled triumphantly, and decided to take advantage of the victory to pursue the attack. It immediately surged all the strength of its body, wrapped up its mighty strength, and rushed towards Xuanshan Wang Meng. Boom! Sandslash was hit head-on, like a kite with a broken string, flew upside down several meters away, and then fell heavily to the ground. Seeing that Sandslash was incapacitated, Medig showed a satisfied smile. "Go on," Chen Qi said calmly. "These days, it's pretty easy for Medig to take out an elite wild Pokemon." Chen Qi and Metang continued to advance along this road, and after another 20 minutes passed, Chen Qi felt that his connection with Kirlia was slightly weakened. Maybe the distance has become longer, Chen Qi secretly guessed. However, at this moment, Kirlia's voice sounded in Chen Qi's mind. It probably means that there is no way for them. Sure enough, once Drew leaves, if you can't find a way to find the right path, you will waste a lot of time. Chen Qi sighed in a low voice. As a result, Chen Qi hurriedly asked Kirlia to bring back the Blaziken teleport. A moment later, there were slight ripples in the space in front of Chen Qi, and in a flash, Kirlia and Blaziken appeared out of nowhere. "Lilu." Kirlia trotted to Chen Qi and bowed slightly. "You did a great job." Chen Qi squatted down and patted Kirlia's small head. "In this way, we can go all the way to the end now." Chen Qi stood up straight, and Flash of Assist Metatang looked forward. Then, he glanced at his phone again. It was almost 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and there was still some time before the mountain was too far away. Immediately afterwards, Chen Qi simply let the 3 Pokemon stay outside and walked forward. Along the way, I encountered several elite Pokemon again, and all of them were easily resolved by 3 Pokemon. Chen Qi couldn't help but wonder, it can't be such a coincidence, can all the Pokemon appear at the elite level? Could it be because of Master Ji Yuzai's question? If the Pokemon that needs to be pointed out as a professional level, will the Pokemon that appears in the cave be a professional level? One question after another popped up from the bottom of my heart. Chen Qi held back the questions, only to see some cows suddenly appearing not far ahead. Since there is cow, it means there is an export. Chen Qi quickened his pace and walked forward. About 2 or 3 minutes later, an open circular area came into view, surrounded by rock walls, and above the center was a hole, from which wisps of sunlight fell. Meanwhile, directly below the opening, sits a burly Pokemon cross-legged. Its appearance is similar to that of a human, but it has light blue skin, 4 thick arms, and 3 tile-shaped protrusions on its head. The most conspicuous thing is that it wears a dazzling golden belt around its waist. This is not the gold sash worn by Machamp himself, but a gold sash that is clearly artificial. Chen Qi understood Master Ji Yuzai's meaning, defeated this Machamp, and won the gold belt. Pokemon. Machamp, Fighting. Ability, Perseverance. Qualification, Master. Level LV42. Occupation. Seeing the level of this Machamp, Chen Qi raised his eyebrows. As a professional level Machamp, Master Ji Yushi didn't even think about letting himself pass this test, did he? Machamp's 4 arms are both offensive and defensive, and he has no dead ends in hand-to-hand combat. For Blaziken, this is a powerful rival that needs to be approached with caution. But Blaziken is never afraid of strong enemies, it came here to polish its fighting skills. Blaziken stepped forward, while Machamp slowly straightened up. The 2 Pokemon confronted each other, and the battle was imminent. Chen Qi stayed in the corner with 2 Pokemon, not disturbing the battle. Machamp took the lead in attacking. It ran straight towards Blaziken, one of its palms turned into a sharp hand knife, bursting with white light, and violently slashed towards Blaziken. Blaziken's gaze was fixed, and he waved his fists entrenched in flames, and the stream of flames surged out, directly meeting Machamp. Boom! In an instant, the two Pokémon collided violently halfway. Machamp's momentum was like a rainbow, and his whole body's strength gathered in the palm of his hand, making it difficult to stop. But Blaziken was also not to be outdone. It threw out both fists, like Horacio showering several punches in succession, bang bang bang, on Machamp's body. Blast Ember on. Machamp's eyes glared, giving people a strong sense of oppression. It gave up the knife in its hand, and its palms also shone with fire, with flames entrenched in them. It changed tactics and chose to respond to Blaziken with Fire Punch as well. Bang, bang, bang. In a short period of time, the two Pokémon collided fiercely with Fire Punch, and the flames burst out all over their bodies, and they collided with each other. Not long after, obvious fist marks appeared on Blaziken's abdomen and shoulders. The same is true for Machamp. Blaziken's punches are extremely fast, like rushing waves, making it very uncomfortable and slightly injured. After a while, the two Pokémon also took 2 steps back, keeping a safe distance, panting slightly for each other, and staring at each other. This time the contest turned out to be evenly matched. Master Ji Yushi of Machamp should have cultivated it himself. Chen Qi thought to himself. Ordinary wild Pokémon who have just entered the professional level cannot be on par with Blaziken. What's more, if Machoke wants to evolve into Machamp, it must be exchanged through communication. After a short break, Blaziken's eyes were sharp, and his eyes were full of fighting spirit. He stepped forward and rushed towards Machamp. This time, it resorted to close combat. Seeing Blaziken like this, Machamp nodded slightly, waving his forearms together, and the wind howled, with a terrifying momentum. It strode forward, using the same move as close combat. Chen Qi suddenly felt that this Machamp chose to use the same move again, as if it was giving some kind of instructions to Blaziken. Bang, bang, bang. The two Pokémon collided with each other in an instant, launching a fist-to-flesh fierce confrontation. This time, Machamp's forearms waved at the same time, and it seemed that he was coming from 4 different directions, making it impossible for Blaziken to dodge and block 5. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.